welcome to episode 10 of the Dimensional Cascade podcast, coming at you from the dungeon in Shoreline, Washington. I am Aiden, and with me today I have
Ricky
and
Tom.
Yeah, and today is finally the Wood Elf review.
Took our sweet time over it, huh?
Yeah. Well, we've been. Let's see. I think we planned this about 6 times, and I must have told the Twitter sphere at least 3 of those times. And so I don't think anyone believes that it's actually happening tonight. It's like, yes, the boy who cried Wood Elf one too many times.
Yeah.
I think best too late than too soon, though.
It's true. It's true.
Nothing worse than reviewing a book when you don't really
Haven't
know
really
much
had
about
a chance
it, yeah.
to lose a lot with the army.
Some stories to come out later.
Yeah,
then, maybe.
I did take it to a GT, so
He's just bitter that I scored higher.
that's true. With your goblins, I'm very bitter about that. Okay, so today we've got a little bit of Tournament Zone. We're gonna just cover off the final bits and pieces for Sparkle Party Deathmatch 4, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. Well, maybe we did do the Tournament Zone special all about Wet Coast, so we won't cover that today. Might mention a very secretive tournament that's happening next year, and we'll go into that in another episode. We're also going to have some news and rumors, a little bit of bits and bobs in there, mostly about Kickstarters and some interesting ones at the moment. But we'll start off with the pit.
The pit.
Yeah. The pit. The pit. The pit. So this week's pit.
It's again the heavyweight category.
Yep.
We've got Dirthu, our reigning heavyweight champ.
Yeah. Now, Dirthu, as you may well remember, is flammable. And this week, or this episode, we've got him up against.
We've got a tough challenge for him.
Very tough
But
challenge.
he's riding high off that absolute massacring of Golg Fag.
Yeah. So we have Cetra the Imperishable. Cetra the Imperishable is the king of all Tomb Kings. He is a ruthless leader whose thirst for conquest knows no bounds. Cetra's power is far greater than any other Tomb King, and his unyielding will is such that he never needs to return to his sarcophagus to rest. Instead, he chooses to remain awake, the ruler of a devastated land. So, Cetra the Imperishable, the great king of Nehekara.
Is it? So the fluff of Cetra, he is like the guy who got the Tomb King started down the whole path of, like, this ancient race down the whole path of, like, embalming the dead and being obsessed with death kind of stuff. Is that true?
I don't think he was the one that started that. I just think he was the greatest.
Okay.
And he was also because he was the greatest, he was one of the first ones brought back by old what's his name, the necromancer. That's
Nagash?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
right.
Nagash brought him back, and that's why there's all that enmity between the vampire counts and the Tomb Kings. I could be wrong on the fluff, but
If you wake up Cetra, king of the Tomb Kings, you're going to have a bad time.
yeah,
So he became obsessed with unlocking the secrets of immortality. And so his priests basically kept, tending his mummification to his tomb after his death. And then that cult kept growing and growing. And then, I think Nagash...
Eventually, Nagash kind of came out of that crowd.
Nagash, I think Nagash was... there was like a big rebellion, and he raised a whole bunch of skeletons, and eventually, I think they figured out how to... I think that cult figured out how to raise Cetra or something along those lines.
Sweet.
Anyway,
all right, let's get into his rules.
Let's get into his rules. He is pretty.
He's hefty.
He is hefty. He's a pretty
such
scary,
a scrawny little Tomb King.
Yeah,
it's a whole combo of stuff on him that's going to make Dirthu
It's true.
suffer.
It's true.
Yeah.
So he's riding on a chariot of the gods, which is actually an enchanted item. 4-up armor save, flaming attacks from the impact hits.
What strength is this chariot?
The chariot itself is strength 5.
Okay, so strength 5
Cetra
impact
is
hits.
is strength 6 himself,
Mhm.
and weapon skill 7. He's got the curse, which is a kind of army wide a special role, which means he's basically explodes when he dies. So if he hasn't killed Durthu in close combat and dies, he might take Durthu with him. He's flammable himself, but that's not going to matter against Durthu. He's got My Will Be Done, which is the special Tomb King's rule about you being able to use his weapon skill when he joins a unit. And he's Nehakaran undead, so he's unstable, unbreakable, all that shenanigans. Can't march.
Can't march? Oh yeah, well he's a chariot anyway.
He's a chariot and he's undead. He doubly can't
he
march.
doubly can't march.
He's a level 1 wizard and gets spells from the lore of Nehakara. And let's see, he's got the Crown of Nehakara, which doesn't affect this. Just means his Nehakaran undead will be done stretches to 6 inches instead of just the unity joints. Stuff that's going to be relevant: the Scarab Brooch of Uzurian, which is a talisman giving him a 4-up ward and magic resistance 1, which is pretty darn nice. And then he's got this magic weapon called the Blessed Blade of Tra, which is
Tra,
yeah, silent P. And it hits from that have the flaming attack special rule and no armor saves. So if he hits Durthu, he's going to be wounding on 4s and no armor saves and double wounds because it's flame. It's kind of gross. Also, if he takes 1 or more wounds, Durthu suffers -1 to hit for the rest of the game.
Does he have, what armor does he have? Any armor?
No, he has no armor himself,
He has
but
a 4-up.
The chariot gives him a 4-up.
gives him a 4-up. Well, the chariot has an armor save of 4-up, but I don't.
Oh, being mounted only gives him
only gives
a
him
6-up.
6-up,
Yeah,
but he's got the
being
4-up
mounted on the
ward.
chariot.
So we
With
got
it.
these guys set up 24 inches apart.
Mm-hmm.
I've posted up the photos of these on our brand new Facebook page. So if you go to Facebook, you can see the photos. They're also on Twitter.
Yep. Cetra's looking damn sexy.
Cetra does look
Painted
spanky.
with the traditional kind of red and turquoise Tomb King's look.
Yeah,
Yep.
it was a lot of
Very
fun. I
nicely
like
done.
that color scheme. It was a
Yeah.
lot of fun to do.
But, you know, he does look kind of puny compared to Durthu. I mean,
Yeah.
Durthu is enormous
Yeah.
and intimidating. Like, Durthu's sword is bigger than Cetra.
But in the
For
thing
sure.
is when Cetra came out, that was pretty much the biggest model in
Yeah.
the game at that time,
Yeah.
besides like maybe a Stegodon, or
Which is
something.
like, what, 12 years ago now?
Yeah.
Maybe something like that.
Yeah. So it's very awesome to see the difference in scale that they're getting out of
Yeah.
models now.
Things
which
just keep getting bigger.
I
They
know it's
do.
so much fun. It's so epic. Yeah.
All right, cool. So I'm going to be rolling for Durthu.
And I'm rolling for Cetra, so I guess first of all I'm a level 1 wizard, right?
You're
So I
both
gotta have a
level
spell.
ones, so
Oh,
you
you're a
both have
level
to-
1, yeah.
You both
Yeah.
have.
I don't know
spells.
anything about the lore of
Nehakara.
Nehakara.
Nehakara. Well, roll a dice and I'll tell you what spell
All right,
you get.
I've got a 5.
Here we go. Number 5. Usekp's Incantation of Desiccation.
Sounds good.
It's cast on an 11 plus.
You're already pretty dry.
It is pretty good, actually. It's cast on an 11 plus.
Okay.
That's a hex with a range of 24. Target unit has -1 strength and -1 toughness until the start of the caster's next magic phase.
Okay.
Ooh, that's really
Or you
good.
can boost it to D3 on a 22 plus.
Oh, you know you're
Do
gonna,
what's the signature for this one?
Signature, you cast it and you get to make another move as if it was the remaining move subphase.
Oh, so I can't charge. So
No.
screw it. All right, I'll keep this one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good. Like,
All right.
that's-
Durthu, come on, Durthu, get that savage
I'm
beast
just
of
gonna
horrors.
dimensional cascade.
I know.
That'd be
Oh, that's gonna be
hilarious.
awesome.
All right, Durthu rolls 3, which is Amber Spear. I'm gonna keep that one.
Yeah, I would.
This is gonna be a shootout.
Yeah. Pew, pew. All right. So let's roll for first turn.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Cetra gets a 2.
And Durthu on a 3
All
goes
right,
first.
Durthu's up first.
All right, so I am moved 5, 24 inches apart. Let's see, I can't get in range of my lamentation. So
Just massive amber
let's
spear at
see.
me.
Yeah, probably. You've got an 8-inch move, so charge 20. I'm going to give you. I'm going to move forward 5. All right. And then I'll roll for Winds of Magic.
Yeah, Winds of Magic.
He's just gonna move back next turn.
9. I'm not going to move back.
9 against 6.
It's against the rules in the pit. You
Yeah,
can't move back.
Oh, come on. I'd move back.
You
Because you're
would.
I'm a
cowardly
goblin.
You would.
Goblin and Skaven player. All right, so I got 9 dice. I only got 1 spell, so I'm going to 6 dice it. Why not?
Do it.
He's going, man. He's going
Yeah.
into the void right
Well,
here.
you know what? If the spell goes off. All right, here we go. Well, I guess you got a 4 up board. That's not good. Amber Spear, 6 dice. And I do not miscast. All right, so I got a 9, and a 9 is 18, and a 4 is 22, plus 1, 23.
All right, I'm throwing 6.
Go for it.
Ooh. Oh, I think he stopped it.
Ooh,
Oh.
that's close.
I've got 16, 18, 21, 22, 23.
Oh,
yeah.
brutal.
Damn
All
straight.
right, all right.
All right, my
You're
turn?
out of range of my shooting attacks, so...
So how far am I? 19 inches, and I've got 8. So I'm going for it. I'm charging.
Do it.
Oh.
Charge. You don't think?
Ooh,
I'm doing it.
I don't
Do
know.
it.
You can still
Do
cast your spell if you fail, so
True.
there's no.
Oh, he got it!
Nailed it.
Oh!
So
My
I swift strided
goodness.
a 6, 5, and a 3. So I got 11 plus 8.
Hang on.
And I'm in.
I'm going to take my stand and shoot.
Stand and shoot with the lamentation.
The Lamentation of Despairs.
At
So-
12 inches away, right? So
Yeah.
that goes to 17.
So what is it? It's 2d6,
Oh.
multi-shot 2d6.
It's range 12, strength 2, killing blow, multi-shots 2d6. Yep. And he's ballistic skill 7.
Okay. It's not poison or anything?
Not poison.
Ballistic
it's
skill
killing-
7. So you've got a
So-
-1 for stand and shoot and
Minus
-1
one
for long range.
And minus one for multi-shot.
yeah.
So,
Okay. So on 3.
threes, yeah.
3s.
And it's 5 shots.
Boo.
Okay.
Not enough. Killing blow's not going to work on him. Because
No, he's a chariot.
Well, he is still an infantry model.
No, he's
Yeah,
still
so he
he's
counts as
troop
a
type
chariot.
now,
Oh,
so
okay.
you can't.
Got to kill a chariot before that would happen. I'll hit with 2 of those. And he's tough a gazillion, so I need 6s. Don't roll any
Well, do we
6s.
randomize between the chariot and him?
True. So that would be 1 on him and 1 on the chariot.
Sure.
And then
It's
1 on
gonna
the
still
chariot.
need a 6 each,
Needs
I
a
guess.
6. No, and on Cetra.
No.
Okay, so nothing from the stand and shoot. And I'm probably going to die to impact hits.
Yeah.
Roll your
All
impact
right,
hits.
we're in. Well, that happened
Wally.
in the combat phase.
Yeah.
Gonna do some magic first, so I'm gonna roll for the wins.
Try and get your hex
All
out.
right.
I get 6.
So I got a 6 and a 2, so I'm just gonna obviously throw those 6 dice
Do
at
it.
my
Do it.
spell. Should I do the souped up one? What do I
Yeah.
need for that? A 22?
22,
Do
yeah.
it.
Alright, I'm doing it. I'm doing
Yeah.
a souped
22.
up one. So this will do D3.
D3 off my strength and toughness.
Solid.
All right.
This is brutal.
Oh, you might
Yes.
have it. You might have it.
I got a 10.
Irresistible.
16, 20, 23, 25, 26.
26, okay.
Who
How
needs
many
double-
dice do I get? 6?
You got 6
Yeah,
dice, yeah.
Oh, I'll see if I channel.
Oh, yeah, save your channel.
I don't.
No,
All
that's
right.
too bad.
I'm like, I'll throw 7 dice at it if I can. All right, 6 dice, 23 to beat, 26
26
to
to
beat.
beat.
Oh,
You
come on,
need it-
double
you just
sixes.
gotta get a double 6.
Oh, no, I think that's doing it.
No.
8,
It
13,
goes off.
17, 21, 22.
Now you are gonna die to impact
I think
hits. You
so.
get a only -1.
Minus
still.
1 still. Okay.
-1 strength and toughness. It'll do.
Okay, so I'm strength,
So-
toughness 5.
Okay.
Mhm.
Into the combat
All
phase.
right, impact hits.
Just D6 or D6 plus 1?
Uh, don't. Let me
It
just.
is
If it-
scythe, so D6.
It's
Besides
I think it
D6
is
plus
scythe,
1
yeah.
then.
Only 3.
Only 3 impact hits,
Oh,
okay.
you have to wound with all 3.
And I wound on 4s now,
Because
because you're T5 now.
T5,
Team
yeah.
5,
Strength
strength
5.
5.
Only
one
one
wound.
wound.
1 wound?
One
Okay,
wound.
Nice. So it's strength 5. So
these-
minus 2
Do
on
these
my
need a
armor save?
randomize because they're as from shooting?
No, because
Oh,
this is on
right,
Dorothy.
These
right,
are
that's
only
on
one.
Dorothy. Right,
Don't,
right.
don't
Sorry.
worry. Yep.
I'm confused. Who's killing
Dorothy's
who?
not riding anything. That would be sweet, though.
Yeah, Dorothy on a chariot.
Dorothy on a huge
A
chick.
huge tree chariot.
Okay, so
A logging truck.
so, dude, he's strength 5. So -2 to the armor save.
Yeah.
So 5 up armor save.
And then a 6 up
And then a
board.
6 up ward. 5 up armor save gets me a 6.
He's in. All right.
All right.
Well, I'm
survive
hitting
the
first.
impact. Yep, you're hitting first. You're immune to psychology, so go ahead.
Sweet. So how many attacks do I get?
Let me just bring up your page here again.
Cetra.
Citra gets 5 attacks, and your steeds each get 1. But they go in
They're going to go after you, right?
same initiative.
All
Initiative
right.
2. What's Durthu? Durthu's initiative 2?
2.
Yeah, 2.
All tree men.
Yeah.
So 5 attacks. We're both weapon skill 7, right?
Yep.
So on 4s. 3 hits.
Okay.
And now I'm moving on
Strength
2s.
6. No, strength 6, tough 5.
Oh yeah.
So 3s.
That's such
Threes.
a good spell to get for this fight.
Okay,
Oh,
2 wounds.
2 wounds.
Okay.
And
and
no
I-
armor saves.
No armor
But
saves.
you get your 6 up ward.
6 up ward. Come on, boxcars.
One,
I got
all
one.
right.
So I take 2 wounds.
2 wounds, which puts him down to 4, right?
Yep.
That's because of flammable.
Yep. Yep. Okay,
Down to 4.
now I get to attack back.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tree whack you.
Hey!
Seems like the right approach.
Does that randomize, or do you just pick?
Tree whack beach.
You probably pick.
I
I
pick the
guess.
model in base contact, so
Pick up. Yeah. All right.
So,
So,
I
you
would
can pick
assume that I could tree whack you or tree whack the chariot.
I would guess.
The chariot's pretty benign.
I
at
think
this
you can't.
point.
You think you can't tree whack the chariot? I don't know how that would work. Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna.
I mean, you still for any characteristic test, you use the highest characteristic part
Still
of the model,
Cetra,
so
so-
it'd still be Cetra's. So.
Yeah,
But you can whack the chariot if you want.
No, it doesn't have an initiative, so I'm gonna whack Cetra
All right.
or beach.
Well, you would
beach
if
slap
you
him.
whack the chariot, you would use Cetra's initiative, but be able to just break the chariot. But there's no point. You
No
may as well
point.
just whack
You're
him.
the same toughness,
Yeah, just whack him.
Yeah.
and the chariot is the one that has the 4 up board anyway. I don't understand. Like the chariot grants the 4 up board.
Oh.
Or no, hang on, it's the brooch that
The
grants
brooch gives the
yeah.
4 up ward.
The
The
chariot
chariot just
gives
gives
an
an
armor
armor save.
All right,
Anyway. All right, so I'm taking an initiative test with
Yep.
Cetra.
his initiative 3.
All right.
You
Nailed
passed.
it.
Okay, and there's-
Okay, horses are attacking.
Yep, go for it.
1 hit.
All right. Strength of 3, so we need a 6. Nope.
Nothing.
Okay, so no stomps.
No.
That's that. So
Nothing
I
on
lose
either
combat
side.
by 2.
Stubborn?
3 by 3, but
Yeah.
I'm stubborn. Yeah, on leadership 10. And I roll a 10.
Oh,
just.
So I'm good.
Oh, that is
Solid.
So
All right.
All
Could
right.
you imagine?
All right. Next turn.
Oh, you can't cast your spell because it's a magic missile.
Yep, that's true.
So I'm just hitting you.
Go for it.
All right. 3 hits again.
Okay.
Wounding on 3s again. Only
just the
1. Damn.
Nice.
All right. You're
All
still
right.
going to take 2 wounds from it there.
1 wound, and I need to roll a 6 to save.
Yeah.
Got it.
Oh
Are you
my
kidding?
God, he did.
Look at
Look
that.
at- oh my god.
It was momentarily
What
hidden
are
behind
you
the tape
doing,
measure.
Cetra? What are you doing?
Durthu.
The suspense.
All right, you tree whacking?
I can't
No,
handle
do I tree whack or I just hit you? I'm going to hit you this
All
time.
right,
It'll
hit
be
me.
more fun.
You're not
Do it.
gonna. Oh man.
I should have hit you last time because I forgot he's frenzied, so he's lost his frenzy now.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah,
So you only
so
have
I
Use
only
it
have
first.
6 attacks. I should have used it last turn.
Use it the first turn. and then-
Does
Anyway.
he have hatred too?
Um,
Oh, that would be over now as well.
hitting on 4s.
That's not bad.
4 hits.
4 hits.
That's
all
really
right.
good.
All right. Strength 5 only against tough 5.
Mm-hmm.
So 4s to wound.
Yeah.
I got 2 wounds on you.
Whew. All right, so I'm going to get no armor save, but I got my 4 up ward.
Oh,
Nailed
makes
it.
them
Both of them. Wow.
Oh, this
How
is
does that
brutal.
feel, huh?
This is brutal.
All right, my
Horses?
turn.
Horses?
Oh, horses. All right, let's see what they got. They've got 2 hits. And
I don't think
nothing.
they hit. Oh, I guess they do because their weapon skill 7.
The horses? Oh, yeah,
Oh,
because...
and you're -1 to hit now too.
I'm -1 to hit.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Oh, well, didn't matter.
Didn't
but we'll
matter.
remember that.
Remember for the next time.
So nobody did anything this
No.
turn,
so
right?
it's
So
a tie.
draw. It's a
Yep.
tie. And we're into me, so I'm doing my magic phase. I roll a 4 on the wins.
I don't channel.
I Don't channel. Okay, so I'm rolling 4 dice at just the regular version
And I've only got
of
2.
my spell. Yeah, that's pretty good on a 10,
for double
15,
sixes.
17, 18.
No box cards for
No.
me.
All right, you're still strength and
5.
toughness 5.
God, that's gross.
That's such a good
All right, Cetra's swinging. Cetra's swinging.
Swing, Cetra.
What's he got? Just 1 hit?
Yeah, that's good.
This is abysmal.
That's right. And
On a 3.
I need a nice 1 or a 2 here. Thank you.
Oh my god.
I think this is the longest pit match
Yeah,
ever.
this is going to go on forever.
Well, it is
We're
the
gonna just
heavyweight
need to-
category. They
to
can take a
edit
bit more
this
of a
for
beating.
brevity.
Yeah. I'll edit you out. Don't worry. All right. So I'm just going to attack back. Seems like
All
a
right,
better.
I'm just going to
better
roll
than
my
the tree whack.
horses as well at the same time.
Here we go. Okay, I got 3 hits, even with the -1. Strength 5 and tough 5, so 4s. 2 wounds, my
2
friend.
wounds, all right. Just got to nail this again. There
Oh,
we go.
damn it.
A 5 and a 6
I
for
just
my
need to
ward
get one
saves.
because every one I do against you is going to count double because you're unstable, right? So if you don't win,
if
me,
you win
if
combat,
I win
yeah.
combat, yeah.
But you're not
All
going
right.
to win combat.
No, here we go. Next turn.
Just straight into combat
Straight into
again.
combat.
All right,
There's nothing else
Cetra's
we can do.
swinging again. We got to get some hits this time, Cetra. There we go. 3 hits
3 hits.
on 3s. 2 wounds. This could be it.
Ooh.
Could be it.
Oh,
Need
this
the
is
6s. No 6s.
All right, it's done.
Darther's dead.
Dirthu's dead. The 2 wounds double up from flammable,
Gross.
and
Poor
the chariot
Dirthu.
of fire swung the day.
Well, you know what? It was pretty close. I think if I hadn't have tried the tree whack in the first round,
I know tree whack. If you made the
Yeah.
tree whack,
it's
then
D6 wounds. Yeah.
But you also getting that spell, I think, is really
Yeah.
and passing.
that was a
every
great
ward
spell.
save.
Yeah,
that's
that's
every
true.
ward save, yeah.
Because I think you've done 5 wounds that he saved every one of.
But at the same
Yeah.
time, he didn't get any impact hits on me at all.
True.
Like any wounds from impact hits. That's pretty good going. So
I think the math hammer suggested that this was Cetra's fight anyway. Didn't
I think
it?
so. And for it to have gone so long, in a real battle, someone or other would have lent some support by this stage.
Sure.
And that would have been that. So
yeah.
anyway,
For one side or the other.
beautiful
Looked
scene.
Yeah, it looked
so-
great.
All right, cool. So Cetra,
Is the new heavyweight champion of the pit.
Yeah.
nice.
News and rumors.
So there is actually a new set of rumors going around, I think, just in the last day or so about the release schedule for the summer, because previously it was allegedly going to be a bunch of, we were hoping for the Bretonian release, but now it looks like that is no longer as confirmed as it was.
Really? I thought we were literally days away. I've been checking the What's New Today every day because I thought they were going to put a little teaser trailer.
Yeah, nothing, unfortunately. So let me see if I can just find this.
So they're wasting time doing 40k campaign books.
Well,
kind of thing.
I think it's beyond just that. It is. So now it's looking like July. There's Orcs versus Space Wolves coming out in a box set.
Mhm. Oh, like a new 40k starter?
It's called the Stormclaw box set. So I don't know if that is going to be the new 40k starter.
It would be
or not.
really weird if they got rid
Well-
of Dark Vengeance already.
Well,
Cause
Dark
that's,
Vengeance still sells. They still have it on the shelf, but it's
yeah, and the models
it's
are awesome.
the 6th edition rules.
Why can't they just repackage it with the
Well, they
7th
could,
edition
and the
rules?
models are very good.
The models are great.
And if you're getting into 40k, that's a great way to start.
Mhm.
It does help that I'm a big fan of the Dark Angels.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was my original Space Marine army.
Yeah, I
The
like
emo
those guys
Space
too.
Marines.
Well, I don't know if they are.
They're pretty emo.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I used to play them back when they were black instead of green, and so my Dark Angels now are basically black but with green highlights, and that was how I painted them all up. Anyway,
I just like the tabards.
you like the
Yeah.
tabards? Yeah, I like the little dude that carries the winged helmet around.
Yeah, for like Ezekiel. No, Lord Azrael. Yeah.
Azrael, yeah, I liked him.
He has a little helmet there.
Cool models.
That
yeah.
is sweet.
You know, if only the game was good. So
If only it wasn't terrible.
So Orcs versus Space Wolves, and then after that is Terrain Week apparently, and then Space Wolves with the new codex And then August is apparently a big 4-week release of Chaos.
I did hear about a big
Yeah.
Chaos release on Horizon because they have plastic greater demons, right?
Yes,
or at
apparently
least
there's
one.
a big Nurgle kit coming.
There's a big
plastic Plague Marines. And it doesn't really say how much is going to be 40k versus Warhammer.
Mostly 40k, probably.
I imagine that they might end up, if they're re-releasing some of the demon models, especially the greater demons, then they'll just be Demons of Chaos, which are
Yeah, sure.
for both armies.
Which is what I hope they do. 'Cause
Yeah,
those
and-
models desperately need
Oh,
redesign.
Oh,
yeah.
for sure. I mean, when your Great Unclean One is smaller than an ogre, it's not entirely intimidating, right?
Yeah.
They're like the Great
Yeah.
Unclean One model, unless you get the Forge World one, it's
Yeah.
only as big as a Monstrous Infantry these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, they need plastic kits
I know,
desperately.
they need demons
That's
that are
gonna
as
be
big as
awesome.
Durthu there. Maybe.
Yeah, they need something intimidating. So that'll be cool. But Bretonnians, meh. And then apparently September, all rumors kind of fall into the black hole, but apparently there's something big and secret coming out in
Ninth
September.
Head.
Who
Who knows?
Big and secret.
Yeah.
I'm not sure Warhammer actually counts as big in Games Workshop size.
You don't think?
Well, no, because like Warhammer is less than 20% of their revenue, like fantasy.
Yeah.
So
Maybe new Blood Bowl? That's been rumored
Well,
for a
they
while,
don't-
right?
I don't think they. Well, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It's amazing that Blood Bowl is still going. It's such a well-supported fan game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I who knows? We will wait and see.
That's weird because like I had checked some release schedules just a couple of weeks ago, and they were all pointing to Bretonnians.
Yeah,
within,
and
within July.
Yeah, Ricky sent this one to me, and it was on the Bell of Lost Souls, and we'll
Has
see.
Hastings on there too, which is really
All right, then it's gospel.
Well,
Yeah,
pretty much,
basically.
yeah.
the guy never misses
Yeah.
usually. So.
Yeah, and I
Whoever
think
he is.
Bell of Lost Souls is getting better at ensuring that they don't just like kind of repost stuff off of
Post every rumor.
Natfka or Fate or whatever it is, that dude that just kind of posts everything that anyone sends to him. So we'll wait and see. My one person that I know in GWHQ has said he hasn't heard anything about Bretonnians. So, but that's not to say a whole lot because he hadn't heard a whole lot about Wood Elves before they came out either. So we'll see.
Things are very secret, even
Very-
in the upper echelons.
Very secretive. So, however, there are some pretty cool Kickstarters. So if you like alternative miniatures, there's Mears Miniatures is just wrapping up a Kickstarter all about monstrous beasts, and they've got monstrous mounts on there. So the Kickstarter that they're doing right now is monstrous mounts and the beasts themselves. So you can get like a rider, or you can get
For the Darklands game still.
It is for the Darklands, but they kind of fit into the
They always pick stuff that can kind of count as something GW.
Yeah, for sure.
Usually.
So like one of the ones they've got here is the spitting image of a stone horn. Another one, another one is a great big kind of crocodile looking thing, lizard thing, and another one looks like I'll just show you the pictures here. Another one is some kind of demonic mount.
That's cool looking.
And yeah, they are very cool, and they're big miniatures. They look really impressive on the table. There's the stone
Yes,
horn
do
looking thing.
the big stuff pretty well.
Yep. And so
I like the lizardman guy.
yeah,
that's fun.
they're not cheap, but at the same time, they're usually pretty good quality. And these ones are great. And one of the things that's and then there's a kind of like a brood horror looking thing.
Oh yeah, it's like a Skaven guy. Huh?
Yep. One of the things that's sometimes a little some people have said is that the models can kind of look a bit static. But these ones all look pretty good. So.
Yeah, as long as they translate well from concept to model, they look like they'll be pretty awesome.
Yes.
The only trouble I've had with their stuff is that their resin is super brittle.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I've not
That's
ordered
been my
anything from it.
experience so far, but
Cool. And you spotted another Kickstarter, Tom.
it's just kind of on the horizon, yeah. So there's a company called Raging Heroes. Have you seen their stuff before?
Yeah.
They have some really cool stuff, and it's been rumored for a while that they were releasing their first like full-on army project, which was going to be Dark Elves. and then nothing was heard about it for a while, but now it looks like they're going to start a Kickstarter for it pretty soon, because they just published a bunch of concept art for the Dark Elf stuff as part of one of their other Kickstarters.
Yeah. Now, is it all mostly characters, or
It's
is it
they're going to
units?
do a lot of units, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they already have the
They have a
Witch
kind of
Elf alternative.
Yeah, exactly. So they've already gotten to making a few units. They have a pretty nice unit that could be Treekin.
Nice.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, some of their stuff is really good.
some of their stuff is good. They have a really cool
that the one that's-
Manticore model. Actually, their Manticore is awesome. Would work really well for a Dark Elf army. And yeah, I guess that falls in with this Kickstarter as well. So the Kickstarter is a
Yeah.
full...
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
One. Yeah.
The Kickstarter is going to be a full Dark Elf army. They're obviously borrowing a lot of concepts from GW. There's like a Cauldron of Blood kind of thing.
So
Which the
good.
concept art actually looks really cool. It has like a giant flock of harpies flying around it,
Oh,
around
cool.
the top of it, and it's on wheels being pushed along by slaves.
Cool.
So
Cool.
the Kickstarter hasn't started yet, but I'll keep an eye on it, and we'll talk about it again when they get rolling.
Sweet. I think Dark Elves is certainly a very popular army,
Sure.
judging by the amount of alternative miniatures that have
Right.
come out for it.
And I think people who are doing alternatives for things like Witch Elves are doing really well, because obviously people have been quite outraged by the pricing on GW Witch Elves. So
Yeah, for sure.
cheap alternatives
It's
is
weird that they
are doing
really
well.
price those ones so high. I still don't get that.
Yep.
When you compare the Witch Elf kit to the Dark Elf the Corsair kit,
Mhm.
which is also 10 models, pretty dynamic, still nice models, and they're $25 compared to $60 for the Witch Elves. Seems like a really bizarre
Yeah,
pricing choice.
it is bizarre. I know that the Avatars of War guys, they had all of their digital models and everything made for the Witch Elves, and they finally got their molding finished and are starting to ship the Witch Elves now.
Nice.
So
And that's plastic, right?
it's plastic. It's a plastic kit,
Yeah.
and if you were in the Kickstarter or you ordered early, you got 30 models for the price of 20.
And they were nice.
They were
right?
nice and reasonably cheap even for the 20. So Taylor is anxiously awaiting his Witch Elves.
Nice.
So that he can actually get that's his army done once he gets
Once
those.
the Witch Elves are
Yep.
there.
But he's waiting on that because it's core, right? So he
Mm-hmm.
can't really do anything until that arrives.
The Tournament Zone.
As we were coming back from the Wet Coast GT, we came up with an idea for a secret army tournament. And we're going to talk about that more in the next episode because I think it needs some in-depth discussion. But watch this space or listen to this space. Does that even work? For more info about that.
Yeah.
I do want to mention the Victory or Death tournament, which is being run by the Chumphammer crew. So Chumphammer is a podcast based out of BC. Del Johnson's the guy that is running the tournament. He also is the workhorse behind the Chumphammer podcast. It's a 2-day GT in August, the 23rd and 24th in North Vancouver. It's $50. They got a bunch of prizes and stuff there. So they're a great bunch of guys. We've played against them now a couple of times at tournaments. Very skilled on the battlefield and a lot of fun to hang out with and play with.
Yeah, definitely.
Very loud, so you got to be ready for that. They like to shout a lot. I think at the Wet Coast, I remember seeing at least 2 or 3 of them being picked up by the others and tossed into the swimming pool.
Nice.
So shenanigans abound, but that should be a fun tournament. A little bit closer to home and a little bit more imminent, we have Sparkle Party Deathmatch 4 coming up at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Sparkle like it's $29.99.
Yeah.
I'm pretty excited because I'm being the alt for this tournament, so I may not have to play. But if I do get to play, I'm playing with Ricky Skaven.
Yeah. That'll be fun.
It'll be exciting to use a different army.
Yeah.
And if I'm because I'm the alt, I'm donating my wood elves to Tom.
Yeah, I'm going to play with something that's just going to be completely different for me, and I'm stoked.
Nice.
I have a pretty funky army list in mind, but we won't spoil that fun.
All right. We might be able to draw it out of you as we go through the book.
Yeah, a little bit, I guess.
Yeah.
So I think in the last episode we went through did we go through just the first?
Yeah, just the first scenario.
And you want to just cover off maybe the other two scenarios?
Yeah, I'm gonna get them pulled up right now. I was having problems getting on your network. I don't know what's up with that.
Oh, I'm sorry. One of my routers is down.
Okay, so first, because we're doing the 29.99 points, we redid the 20-nil bracket to a 200 point for each ladder, or each rung on the ladder. So it's, if you're within 200 points, it's a 10-10. If you're 201 to 400, it's an 11-9, etc. So all the way down to let's see, a 19-1 is 1801 to 2000, and a 20-nil is if you have 2000 plus. So that's because there's more points involved. It just made sense to kind of have that bigger spread.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so then round one, just to recap, I'll just recap all of them really quick. Is Blood and Glory. I'm not changing the deployment from Blood and Glory. It's everything that Blood and Glory is, except that Breaking Fortitude doesn't end the game. If you break your opponent first, you get 3 points, 3 battle points that add on top of your 20-0 or whatever score you get. And then if you break your opponent at all, you get 2 points. So both players can earn those 2 points. So even somebody who's had a really rough game, if they did manage to break their opponent, they're going to be getting a few points out of that. That's pretty much what we did in the very first Sparkle Party, where all 3 scenarios were that, but we used battle line deployment instead.
Yeah, so the only difference there is an extra 3 inches in your deployment zone.
Yeah.
So you're a little closer.
And the edges.
And the edges, you have
6
to be in
inches?
the
6 inch on
I think it's
each side?
9 inch.
9 inch on each side.
Yeah, so it's basically you're 9 inch from the side, 9 inch from the center.
Yeah.
And that's what gives you the 15-inch deployment zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it creates a little bit of a different deployment for people, because I haven't really done that in Sparkle Parties yet, except for one battle for the past. Okay, so round 2 is, kind of I couldn't keep myself from doing it. I had to put some Sparkle Stone back in there. So this one's morning, Bob. Carl, how you doing? Wait, is that another piece of Sparkle Stone? Get it! So it's going to be Dawn Attack. I wanted this one to be one objective in the middle of the board that both teams are trying to get, but you don't get to have your nice, easy deployment. You might not be able to line up that uber killy Death Star to get that one objective. There's a chance you will, but you might not. And even if you do, you might not have the rest of your army there to support it. So that's why I went with Dawn Attack. I thought that was a good pairing to have that.
Solid.
So how do the extra victory points work in this one?
In this one, you get 2 battle points if you have a core unit within 6 inches of the Sparkle Stone at the end of the game. And the Sparkle Stone is the objective in the center. Both players may earn these points. And then you also get 3 battle points if you have the largest core unit by wounds, not counting characters, in the unit.
Maybe I should borrow Ricky's Goblins.
Yeah, and that's if, within 6 inches. If tied, the unit with more command upgrades wins. If still tied, then both players can earn those points. So both players theoretically could earn 5 points in that game.
Pretty unlikely.
Really unlikely. So the other thing that's going to happen in that one round is the Sparkle Stone gives off a random buff every turn.
I love this.
Yeah.
Just to the closest unit?
To all core units within 6 inches. So in this battle, core units are going to become a little more important. So it's going to be you roll a D3. If you get a 1 on the D3, you get a 6-up ward save and immune to panic to all core units with even 1 model within 6 inches of the Sparkle Stone. You get a 2, you get a 5-up ward save, immune to panic, and stubborn. And if you get a 3, you get a 4-up ward save and unbreakable. There have been some questions that came up about this. I FAQ'd them on
On the forum?
On the forum. So jump on Dimensional Cascade to check out that. The other thing that I did was I made it so the Sparkle Stone, any ethereal unit that ends within 6 inches of the Sparkle Stone automatically takes D3 wounds with no armor saves allowed at the end of the movement phase. And that's to keep people from camping ethereals there, to keep the core from getting in there
see.
or something.
All right.
You know.
Yeah, I have a funny feeling we might see some ethereal dread saurians, for example.
Yeah, so this would...
How does that work?
Oh, you can bind a dread saurian with ethereal as
You just buy that as an upgrade?
it's an upgrade. Yeah, it's gross.
It's only like 20 points.
You can
too.
make him. I think you can make it fly as well. Can you make it fly?
You can't make it fly.
You can't make it fly, but you can make it ethereal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah,
There's a lot of stuff you can do to a dread sauron that is just plain nasty.
yeah. One of the
and awesome.
one of the guys
Ethereal
from
giant dinosaur?
yeah, one of the guys up in Vancouver was talking about bringing 4 Kadais. Two in his rare slot because he's Chaos Dwarf, and two bound as
Flying
monsters. I don't think you can fit 2 flyers in because that would bring it up to 375. Or is it
a piece.
375 a piece? Yeah, and you can only have 25% in Scrolls of Binding according to the rules in Storm of Magic. So
Is that actually true in Storm? Because in Storm of Magic
Pretty
is a little
sure.
different, where you get a quarter of the game size is just added on as Scroll of Binding.
that's
So-
true.
So
So
it's kind of a different dynamic altogether. If you're playing a 2,000 point game, you then get a bonus 500 points that can only be spent on scrolls or packs.
Ricky,
or...
how does it work?
I got to go back and see, because I think I did write down exactly how I wanted it to work in the overview. But
I think you said it was coming out of special, but I don't know if that means you can
you
take
can spend all of your special.
50% on bound
50%
monsters
on
is
your
kind
army.
of gross.
Yeah.
Yeah, hold on one second. So
Well, I mean,
scroll
it's
management,
doable.
I mean, most people there are not going to be abusing it because they have an army already and just want to fit in
Yeah.
1 or 2 extra cool things.
Well, and it also has to be
Not-
WYSIWYG, right? So
Right.
if you want to bring 4 Kadai destroyers, you better have 4 Kadai destroyers. And if you want them to be flying, they've got to have wings and
Yeah.
all the rest. But you still have a 2 scroll limit per beastie.
monster,
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's so what I said was you take them with normal restrictions, so like you couldn't have whatever, like 4 of one thing.
Yeah.
But they go from your special choice.
Okay.
So Scrolls of Binding and Sorceress Packs may be taken using their normal restrictions from the special choice allowance. So
So you could have up to 50% of your points potentially.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good
Why
to
not?
know.
Do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have at it.
I think if people, the thing is there's so many models that people just never get to play with. Let's play with them.
Let's play with our toys already.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm so tired of like seeing something on Forge World that nobody ever gets to use.
Yeah.
You know, it's just sad.
So you've got that Dread Saurian model, right?
I was thinking about it. I wasn't too impressed with it after
After you saw it all.
Yeah, after I saw it all. So okay, let's get back to the scenario
Sorry.
though and finish this up.
Well, that was a good clarification, though.
Yeah.
So you can just bring your points. Do it. It'll be fun.
Have at it.
We're going to go through the lists because it is such a complicated thing. If people make innocent mistakes, we're probably going to let it slide. But if somebody's intentionally trying to game it, and they have a bad list or something,
They'll get beach slept.
They'll get
Yeah.
beach slapped,
Oh,
or
yeah.
we'll take a hammer to the models, something like that. Yeah. All right, so round 3. This one's just straight up battle line. I wanted it to. It's the last scenario of the day. People are usually a little tired, and you're also probably playing for, your last matchup against the top opponent or something like that. So you really,
I'll be playing on the
Yeah.
top table.
Oh,
playing
yes.
for the win.
yes. So
Trying to
this
beat
is-
me with my own my own
With
wood
your
elves.
Wood elves.
Yeah. So it's always, I think it's nice to just do battle line at the end there. But this one I did want it to be a headhunt, so you're trying to kill each other's character models, not necessarily anyone in particular, just kill the characters. So, you get 3 battle points if you reduce your opponent's number of character models to below half their starting number. Both players may earn these points. and you get 2 battle points if your number of character models is not reduced to below half the starting number at the end of the game. See below for how to round odds. So I made a little chart there because basically if you have 3 characters, you have to kill 2 models.
Sure.
It just seems like it's rounding down instead of up.
Can you add a special rule where it doesn't count if you kill them with a cannon?
Yeah, it's tempting, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm really tempted to start making people fire with the way that I think a cannon should fire, where you just have to roll the scatter die after you nominate.
No. You got to keep those accurate laser cannons because people are bringing 4 Kadai.
Yeah, I know. We need we're gonna need those the demon cannons.
Skull cannons?
Skull cannons. We're going to need those to take out the Kadais. Yeah.
No, they're terrible against Kadais.
Are they?
Because they're flaming.
They're flaming.
Yeah. No, you need dwarf magical cannon.
You need
there we go.
dwarf magical cannon. Yeah,
all right.
That does the drop.
All right, Riley, take care of all those Kadais for us.
All right, cool. So that's Sparkle Party. So in the wider world of tournaments, of course, ETC is coming up in August, and lists have just been submitted. I think you can, if you have a quick Google around, you should be able to find the ETC lists. So for those of you that don't know, ETC is the European Team Championship, kind of inspired by the World Cup. This is each country brings 8 players. You can't duplicate an army. So that's at least a half of the army books are represented.
Mm-hmm.
And the captain of the team against the captain of the other team, they work out who's going to play whom. There's a little system for doing it all, kind of similar to how the OFCC Team Challenge works. And then ultimately they're trying to figure out, which country has the best Warhammer players. Now, the really weird thing about ETC is that they effectively changed the game of Warhammer.
Yeah, it's such a heavily comped environment that it's basically a different game.
It's totally different. The rules for line of sight are different. The rules for magic are different. It's almost. It's recognizable. Broadly speaking, it's the same.
Yeah.
But the tactics that you use and the lists that you bring and so forth are entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're interested in that, take a look. Like I said, the tournament doesn't start until August. I believe, is it in Serbia this year, or was that last year?
That was last year, but I think it is again this year because
or is
although
it
I could be wrong
this year?
But I think they had such a good time there. And
Yeah.
It was so cheap.
Oh, yeah.
It was so cheap for everybody to travel there and stay there, and then they had such a good time that everybody kind of decided, hey, this is the best place to go.
Well, yeah, it's in Europe. We're not going,
Yeah.
and the comp seems strange, but by all means, check it out.
But it was interesting looking at the. I just saw a little compilation about the number of each army that's being represented throughout the total of all the different teams.
I would hazard a guess that every single country is bringing warriors and dark elves.
I don't know if everybody is bringing warriors. High elves and dark elves were by far the best represented.
Wow.
And I think so. Warriors, I think, can
And a
struggle
banner of Roll
sometimes.
Dragon and-
I've got it right here. So 28 dark elf armies.
Yeah.
There's 32 teams, so no army came to every team.
How many high elves?
26 high elves.
26 high elves.
24 Skaven.
Oh, nice.
23 demons, 22 empire, 21 orcs and goblins, and 0 beastmen.
I know that's the only army that's not
that
like, even
hurts.
like Tomb Kings are being
3
taken by
Tomb
some
Kings,
people.
8 Bretts, 9 Lizardmen, 10.
And the funny thing is, I
Chaos
think like
Dwarfs.
their comp gave Beastmen like a massive boost this time. I think they got like a bunch of extra points. Their the monsters were all reduced in points, but still,
Yeah,
they
people
just seem like
don't ever
such a
practice
bad
with
choice.
them.
Yeah.
I
I know. I kind of feel like the system would have allowed a pretty powerful Beastman army to be taken. Actually,
If only you were going to.
I know, right?
Yeah.
But I do think that in the heavily comped environments, the high elves and dark elves, because those books are so, they have good internal balance. There's a lot of strong options.
Yeah.
They tend to always do well in the comped environments, just because it's kind of hard to nerf all the good choices there are, because there are so many good choices.
Yeah.
Whereas books like Warriors, with less good internal balance, it's easy to just pick out the power choice and kind of nerf it, and then
that's really true.
they do less well.
Like you say, oh, don't take the banner of the rolled dragon. Yeah, well, that's 100 points I can spend on some other
Sure,
stuff that's going to
exactly.
make your life just as miserable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm looking at the top half and the bottom half. I'm surprised to see Ogre Kingdoms in the bottom half. I'm also surprised to see Lizardman in the bottom half.
Well, again, with ogres, they probably just put some kind of nerfed
yeah.
like the Hell Heart, put some restriction on Mournfang.
They probably only
And then
allow
all of
like
a
a
sudden-
certain number of Mournfang and a
Exactly.
certain number of cannon.
Then all of a sudden,
And-
ogres are not that solid anymore.
Yeah. Then
Yeah.
they take away all the stuff that balances them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that a lot of teams they fix what armies they're going to have in there.
Mm-hmm.
So slight secret that I have, being from Northern Ireland, I'm really kind of crossing my fingers that next year I might qualify for the Northern Ireland ETC team. We're planning a trip back to Europe as a family anyway, and so I was like, okay, we're going to go to Europe anyway.
Serbia it is.
You know, I think it's in Prague next year.
Okay, well, that's a great city to visit. Anyway.
And you know, if I do well in the tournaments here, you know, they basically do a rating system. So I might get to go. So it'd be interesting to see, you know, what it would be like to kind of play under that comp.
Yeah,
So
fun.
if that happens, I'm going to spend like 3 months just playing ETC,
ETC
comp
only,
games. So
yeah.
you guys are,
We have to play ETC.
yeah.
Boo.
Do ETC allow squid gobbers?
Probably not.
No,
yeah.
I don't think so. Well, they do allow
They
Chaos
pro-
Dwarfs
They
though.
probably wouldn't allow me to take 2 units of squigs either. They're like,
They'd call foul.
you have 4 fanatics. You're banned. Ah!
Oh no. Yeah. Okay. So let me see. I think that's probably everything that we wanted to talk about in the tournament zone. So we will wrap that up and get rocking with the Wood Elf review.
The Art of War.
So the Wood Elf review. Here we are. Time to review the book.
How long has it been now? 2 months?
Yeah, about that. I thought you were asking how long has it been since they had a new book, and that was 10,
No.
that was 10 years.
No, since the book came out.
Yeah, I think 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
So I've had a bunch of games with it. I think actually, have you played with them or just against them?
Just against.
I played with them.
You played
once,
with them,
yeah.
and I've played
I
a
had
bunch
lot of
with
fun
them.
With them too. Yeah.
I've played against them as well. So I've done the Wood Elf on Wood Elf thing. It all got a bit, you know,
Sounds.
Elf.
yeah, Elfie. Yeah. that's on Elfie. So let's go through the book. I sprung for the special edition because, you know, it was my only army. It seemed like the right thing to do. I was a little disappointed actually by it because, you know, the Dwarf special edition had this really cool cover that was, you know, multi-part cover with dwarf runes on the outside. And when you opened it up, it said, you know, in the special edition, limited number, you know, whatever on the inside. This, I mean, it has a special cover, but and the you know, the outside of the pages are all gold leaf, but the limited edition number was actually in an envelope tucked inside the book.
So it's just like a little separate.
Just a little
certificate
insert,
kind of thing.
yeah.
It's the not so special limited
Not so
edition.
special limited edition.
You
It
want
was
that
kind
to
of
be
a
part
letdown.
of the book, kind of. Otherwise, that's just lost, and then
Yeah,
there's nothing to distinguish.
yeah,
Then there's nothing to distinguish your book from anyone else's.
exactly. And then on top of that, you know, I ordered the book within the first 5 minutes of it going live.
Were you sat by your computer just refreshing the page?
I actually had a
constantly?
little plug-in in my browser that was alerting me to it. And
Wow.
yeah, well, I was also kind of like tweeting everything that came out, you know, to the point where, you know, I think a lot of people felt that some of the Wood Elf news was coming directly from me, but I was just, other people were sending it to me and I was just feeding it on to everyone. But anyway,
pretty productive day at work that day. Then.
yeah. So I got my order in the first 5 minutes, but you know, it had absolutely no bearing on the number that you got. Like, so
Probably
I got
more to do with country.
It was to do with country. I got number like 897 or something. And even then it wasn't that much to do with country. Plenty of people who ordered after
Just
me
random,
got a different
maybe?
number. But I think they blocked out the numbers based on country. Either way, I was kind of saddened by it because it was like I was hoping for, the artwork is nice, but it's artwork that's featured inside the book already, so it's not unique artwork.
Is it so on the cover you have the Twilight Sisters?
Yeah.
Is that the same one that comes in their
Yeah.
entry page?
Yeah, if you look
Right.
inside.
What was the sleeve? Like the dust jacket?
The sleeve was just like a full art version of the cover that you've got on the regular army book.
Oh, okay.
So it just doesn't have the word wood elves on it. The whole thing has like little wood elf icons down the side and nothing on the front or back to tell you what the book is. But in general, it was just, I wanted a little more
for your extra $40.
Yeah, exactly. So that was that.
That is a shame because normally, like, even when these books are expensive, normally you're getting like pretty.
You
good
get
quality
something,
stuff
yeah,
for
for
it.
sure.
Yeah,
So I was a little disappointed by that. So let's go into the fluff. So like all these new books,
you don't want to review the how to use this book page.
Yeah, I think we can pass right past that and into the Lords of Athelloren.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, that double page spread picture that's right there, that was leaked.
It was one of the first bits of artwork to be
Yeah,
leaked, right?
yeah.
It's the first because that came out and then everyone was like, "Whoa, stags are actually happening."
Yep.
Turns out.
Exactly. And they released two versions of it. One where the Wild Riders had elf faces and one where they had the helmets on them.
Little acorn hats.
So yeah, those got added later. So originally they were just going to have elf faces on them. So that's interesting.
Kind of like the old models.
Kind of like the old models, but on stags. Mm-hmm. Exactly. So going through the fluff, what did you guys think of the fluff? Did you have a chance to read it all?
I kind of like when I first started reading it, I thought like it was just dirge, like the first few pages to me, just not necessarily the content, but just the way it was written. It was
really hard to get
into. Kind of stumbled along. Yeah. It seemed like the writing just wasn't good. I pushed on because Aidan told me it got better later on, and I feel like it did, but I just thought the writing was not really there.
I think that's partially because of the comparison with the dwarf book, right? Where it's much more engaging.
The last army book I just sat down and read all the way through was the dwarfs, and that really like sucked me in. The stories seemed to follow logically and were well written.
I seem to have problems focusing on the writing simply because the artwork I thought was so well done. I really enjoyed it. Like each the compositions and the color and everything really feels very fey elfy.
Yep.
Kind of.
So there's some new things
cool
added.
Stuff.
Yeah. So there's some new things added. They went into way more detail about the different areas within the Athelloren.
That part I just dug right into that part.
Athelloren seems to have become a much more. It was always like a mysterious place, but now it's just crazy. It's like some crazy
super
circus
magical
house kind of
thing. Yeah.
You go in and just everything's changing. You can be in there for like 10 minutes and then come out as an old man or something.
Well, that part was always there.
Oh, that's
kind of the C.S. Lewis influenced side of things, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Which again is just coming from folk tales. But I think what's really interesting is like now here's this area of the forest that's in permanent winter, and this other area that's permanently in the autumn and permanently in the spring, or where it's always dark, or the sun is always shining, or
I love it.
Well, it's nice because it gives you opportunity to really theme your army and not feel like, oh, these guys only can fight between, September and November.
Yeah, and the nice thing is they actually went through and they gave a little bit of iconography for each one of those realms. So somebody who did want to do a really themed list and wasn't extremely creative has something to start with. Which I really love. I like that they do that.
Yeah, and some of the units that they mention later are kind of tied
to the different realms.
To the different realms. At least there's a nod to them in some cases for sure. So I like that. I think the stories got interesting when they started going into the Great Seasons, which was kind of the timeline of the Wood Elves. That's when it gets interesting.
So just going back a little further to the beginning is So the kind of origins of the Wood Elves, has there been any change in that since the previous book? So there's the kind of story where as Ulthuan is being swamped by demons. I guess Durthu kind of helps rescue some the Everqueen's children, right? And then it kind of sets in motion this binding between the forest and the elves.
Yeah. So that's definitely, a little more in depth.
Okay.
But the broad strokes are the same, in that, the elves the elves from Ulthuan expanded into other areas of the Warhammer world, and the ones that settled in Athaloran over time started to really like it there, as opposed to feeling like they were part of Ulthuan.
Because then there's some episode where all the elves are called back to Ulthuan and the Athaloran ones refuse to go.
Yeah, well, it's basically the Sundering, right? When
sure.
Basically the Civil War is going on. And what's interesting, and I think what makes the interesting fluff change here, is that the Wood Elves now are kind of portrayed as being the ones who looked at the Civil War and looked at the schism that was created and the different directions that the High Elves took versus the Dark Elves. And they said, why are you doing that? That's just crazy. Just embrace, both sides of your nature, and that's okay.
And that's something that's really carried throughout the book.
Yeah,
we'll
very
get
cool.
Even into the rules, as we'll get into later.
Yeah, and I really like that. It's I was a little worried that with the books that they were writing, the Orion novels and so forth, that there was going to be this portrayal of Wood Elves being, more savage and feral, and I was worried about things kind of switching into savage orc territory,
They would
a
seem
little bit
less elfy,
exactly.
But they just seem
I think
like,
they've captured it right here. They're like, screw you guys and get out of our forest, right? Which
do you think they have this dual nature thing is taken to such an extent that in, say, the next edition of Warhammer they would need to be considered a neutral race, or do you still see them as a forces of order kind of race?
I think they're still order. Yeah.
I think they're still order because they're broadly concerned with building and preservation, not destruction and ruin, right? They are the destructive part of them is kind of like a natural order destruction,
right? But that's kind of the same with beastmen as well. It's like they have a hatred for man destruction of the natural world in order to build cities and things, so they just want to lay it all back to waste.
Yeah.
You don't think there's any of that?
I think there's a little bit of a difference.
There's a bit of a difference, sure. Beastmen are obviously pure chaos, but in the same way that ogres are neutral.
Well, I don't think the Wood Elves seek to go completely back to nature. They still have the cities that they do have, they want to build in harmony.
Sure.
And I think that's the difference, is trying to find balance and harmony and embrace both your light and your dark side.
I have a feeling though that you could be on the right path, because I think an argument could be made that they're pretty neutral now, and I could definitely see them allying with. They equally don't want to ally with anyone.
Yeah,
right.
Right.
So
it does seem like when they actually sally forth from the forest or whatever to get involved in things, it's usually to put down some kind of chaos or orc and goblin,
because they're usually destroying the forest.
So destructive.
Yeah. So I think
it's
they're
really
still
all tied to the forest.
Yeah.
Like whichever one of those forces, equally like forces of order can endanger the forest with the realms of men kind of encroaching to expand their empires.
Yeah, so. For sure. And speaking of the forest, one of the things that was added into the fluff, it was kind of hinted at in some of the older books, but it's now explicitly called out, is this concept of the world roots, which is the forest of Athaloran is a forest that is connected via roots underneath the rest of the world to other forests all over the place. And I think this is, partially just a good way to logically state that Wood Elves can go fight in Lustria or
Sure.
wherever something happens to be.
Creates an easy way to explain Wood Elves just popping up anywhere.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
it does become kind of hard for. I mean, they've always traditionally been portrayed as a very insular race, so like everything they do is to defend the forest. So it's hard to imagine them, being out there campaigning for some other reason.
Yeah, this kind of puts them into the
yeah.
world stage and
Makes campaigns easier for sure. Coming up with how and why the Wood Elves got there.
Yeah, and Ariel is depicted now more as someone who is concerned about the world roots and the forest as a whole, not just Ethel Lauren, not just her and Orion. So that's interesting. And as you read through the stories of their history, very much that dual nature comes out.
Yeah.
It's all she did this really bad thing that kind of corrupted her soul, but then she came back, and then it was like, oh, now I've got this kind of dichotomy
is
going
that
on.
the story of the Ariel and Marathi story? Is that new, or was that always part of the fluff? Where that's where Wood Elves get the dark magic from, I guess, as Marathi teaches.
I think that's new.
Ariel in exchange for not like crushing her palace or whatever.
I don't remember any mention of the Dark Elves really in the old book, particularly. I think Matt Ward wrote all three of the elf books, the new elf books.
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious that he wrote or conceived of at least the fluff all at the same time.
Yeah.
And so, there's bits and pieces of the Dark Elves in both High Elf and Wood Elf books and High Elves in both books as well, both the other books. So I think he tied that all in at that point. The depth of the history is much greater than it was in the 6th edition book, for sure.
So Ariel learns dark magic from Marathi and then turns all emo for a little while, and the forest starts to degrade. And
yeah, they're elves. Emo's in their nature.
Yeah. Well, that's what ended up when we were talking about the different realms. That's what caused all the different realms, was all the different emotions she went through affected those realms and locked them into that particular whatever environment. Or whatever.
So one thing that's a little different is we can maybe go into this with some of the special characters when we get there, but some of the named characters in the stories are a little different. Like there were 3 treemen mentioned, as the ancients from the beginning, and Durthu is one. Coadil is another, and he was also in the other book. I think the third one was new. See if I can find his name.
his name. Yeah, begins with A.
Adanhu.
Adanhu.
Yeah. And I don't remember him being
He's
mentioned.
the more kind of like balanced one.
Yep.
And Durthu and Coadil are a bit crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Durthu gets more crazy as time goes by.
Yeah.
He just gets mad.
So I think if you haven't read the fluff yet and you've got the book, chances are you started reading the start of the fluff, and it is pretty painful.
His writing just seems kind of stumbly.
I would describe it as he overwrites in the first half, and then in the second half he's more telling the story.
He writes like a 9th grader trying to impress their English teacher.
Yeah.
Just like really big words everywhere.
There is a lot of big words and unusual sentence structure.
Yeah, unusual structure for sure.
But persevere with it. And the stories, I think...
He was channeling an elf. What do you expect?
That's right. I think that the stories in the timeline stuff and during the seasons is actually
all very
quite
interesting.
Yeah,
I think so for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, overall, I know we've only reviewed one other book. I would definitely put this substantially lower in terms of fluff than the dwarf book.
The dwarf book, the fluff I just found so engaging.
Yeah. So there's some cool maps in there, some cool icons as well.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff for inspiration if you're looking.
The artwork is really, really beautiful.
The artwork is nice. Yeah.
All right, let's roll on into the Army Special Rules. Let's talk about what they have. And then we can maybe talk a little about the differences between this and the old book.
Okay.
So the Blessings of the Ancients applies to most of the spellcasters in the army now. And if you're in a forest, you get +1 to all your casting attempts. That's pretty solid.
It's really solid considering how easy it is to keep your caster in a wood.
Yep.
Yeah.
When generally, I mean, as we'll go into later, people are generally taking very mobile characters mounted, so
Yeah. And
easy to shift them around between
And
woods.
especially when tied with the next rule that
Yeah.
they get.
yeah, so this is, it's called Ambush from the World Roots now. It used to be called Woodland Ambush. It's effectively the same rule. You get a free forest. The two things that have changed, and one is only a partial change. One is that the size of the wood is now bigger. It used to be a 6-inch forest. Now it's a citadel wood.
Citadel wood.
Which is pretty big. Actually.
It's about 10 inches by 8 inches. So it's a reasonable size. If you don't have one already, there's a template on our website. And you can, I scanned the citadel wood and then drew an outline of it and put it in there at scale. So you can print it out on a piece of letter paper and you'll have a template. I don't know, some people have done that and then made their own forests from it. So
If you feel like you spent enough money on your army already,
yeah, exactly.
don't want to drop another $40 on a wood or whatever it is.
Yeah,
It's 30, but yeah.
30. It's not too bad, and it's actually a pretty decent kit.
It is.
If
It's
you
really
don't,
cool models. Yeah.
if you don't have one, I would encourage people to, it looks really good once you paint it up, and it's pretty solid.
And because it's like part of the army now, you can have it right there on your display board.
I always had mine
with
on
your
my
army.
display board,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So you get your free forest, and then the other partial difference is that you get to deploy it in your half. It used to be you had to deploy it in your deployment zone. And the way I say it's only a partial difference is because in earlier editions of the game, your deployment zone was bigger than it was. Now it's just saying no matter what the deployment is and how you're being deployed, you get to deploy it in your half, which is pretty darn cool.
Yeah.
And we can talk a little bit about how we can use that when we talk about the builds. But
Sure.
what it does mean is, you always have at least one forest on the table, so you know you're going to be able to, at the very least, have that +1 to cast.
Yeah.
Now, the really neat thing about this forest, the brand new thing, is that you get to choose what type of forest it is.
Yeah.
So I still only take a mundane forest.
Really?
Yeah, just because I would forget.
Yeah. It's
and-
just going to add more complexity.
Yeah, and
but-
maybe once once I'm remembering all of the rules for the army all the time, I'll remember and choose. But you can choose to make it a venom thicket, which I've seen a lot of people do,
I think that's a solid choice.
which gives anyone who's in them there gets poison attacks in close combat. The downside is there's dangerous terrain tests involved, but
Well, yeah, and then your enemy can also benefit from that too.
they can, but they have to be fully. They have to have at least half their models
Yeah,
in it.
yeah.
So it seems like a really good thing to use if you want to use your forest as like a bunker to have a big unit of archers in or something to sit in
Yeah.
your...
Which is not how I've been
So-
using it.
right.
So that's
But
why
it makes those archers a little harder to try and charge in and just
yes,
sweep away.
a little bit more painful.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you bring that forest back and have it, as a back line kind of thing,
Right.
absolutely.
Just a dedicated bunker.
Yeah.
Because that also helps prevent fast cav just charging in and mopping up here.
It's very true. It's
Yeah,
very true.
archers.
But as we'll see later, there's going to be reasons why you want to put that further forward.
Okay. We'll get into it.
So next up, we've got the Forest Spirit Special Rule. So this was in the old book. It's changed considerably. You get the Forest Strider Special Rule. All your attacks, close combat and shooting, are magical, and you're immune to psychology and get a 6-up ward, but only if you're not a mount. So there's a couple of models in here that are mounts: the Great Stag, the Forest Dragon. They do not count as forest. They do not get the 6-up ward on the immune to psych when they're a mount.
Right.
So then, of course, there's the question of, well, if you kill the model off the top of a forest dragon, does it then get the 6-up ward? technically it was taken as a mount in your army list.
As if it's taken as a mount,
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, but other people say, well, there's nobody mounted on it, right? So
Semantics, right?
yeah,
It comes down to whether your model is detachable. You can
Yeah.
take the little rider off.
yeah, and
Is it magnetized? Then no. You don't need to warrant it.
and this is actually the beginning of some of the issues with this book. There's a lot of ambiguity in here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, as we go through, for those of you that don't know, I'm a moderator on the Wood Elf forum, and I've spent a lot of time kind of talking through all the rules and how they apply. And I'll give kind of what I feel is probably the best interpretation for the rules until we get an FAQ.
Yeah, and also, I think you represent what the Wood Elf community has kind of decided is best practices for the ambiguity. So,
Yeah, for sure. And for this one, I think, the 6-up ward and the immune to psychology are such a minor boost that, if there's no longer a guy on the back, fine. Take your 6-up ward, take your immune to psych, because it's actually, the immune to psych probably doesn't really matter that much because your dragon causes terror anyway. And a 6-up ward, for that one time it might possibly save you, fine. Nobody's going to begrudge you it. If it was a 4-up ward, then maybe people would fight about it. Okay.
Yeah, generally, if you already killed the Lord off the back of the dragon, you're pretty pleased with yourself anyways.
Yeah. Okay, so Forest Stalker is the next special rule. So the Forest Spirit special rule tends to apply to anything that looks like it's made out of wood. So it's the Dryads, the Treekin, Treeman. The Forest Stalker special rule applies to the Elves in general. So this special rule kind of replaces all of the other special rules that the Wood Elves had spread across their units in the previous book. So again, you get the Forest Strider special rule. And then you get a whole bunch of bonuses if at least half the unit is inside a forest. And these special rules can be summed up pretty easily by saying you get the High Elf army-wide special rule and the Dark Elf army-wide special rule as long as you're in a forest. So explicitly, that's being able to fight and shoot in an extra rank, and being able to re-roll all to wound rolls of a 1 in close combat. So that is actually pretty neat. And this is one of the reasons why you might want to have your forest a little further forward. Because if you're making close combat attacks in your forest, you're way more likely to win combat than you are if you're not.
Way more likely? I mean, I don't see the High Elf rule coming into play that much.
Eternal Guard.
Well,
apart from for Eternal Guard.
Wildwood Ranger is also...
Yeah,
I guess.
So we'll come to those in a minute. But the Dark Elf rule is
the Dark Elf rule will be nice.
Very good, particularly if you're, for example, with Wild Riders. We'll get to them in a minute, but they're Strength 5 on the charge. So against Toughness 4 troops, they're wounding on 3s. Having that 1 to reroll.
Right. So half of your fails.
You get another chance to go with. It's pretty good. So those are the special rules. A little bit simpler than they previously were, which is kind of nice. The next,
also so going back to the High Elf Dark Elf thing, the Blessing of the Ancients is kind of reminiscent of the special rules that High Elf and Dark Elf casters get. The High Elf gets +1 to cast High Magic, and Dark Elf +1 to cast Dark.
That's right.
Wood Elf, it's just +1 to anything across the board.
+1 to cast anything. Yeah, for sure. So, what do you guys think of those special rules? Any thoughts on what's good, what's bad?
The only thing I would say is I wish Forest Stalker included that Wood Elves weren't disrupted in the woods.
Yep.
Other than that, I'm pretty pleased with it. I know we compare the 6-up ward to the last edition, which was 5-up, right?
It was a 5-up, but it was canceled out by magical attacks.
And I know that at first I was like, whoa. That's like a big difference between a 5-up and a 6-up. But then I think I'd rather have the constant 6-up, and a 6-up is still pretty good. Considering that most of the trees have high toughness to begin with.
I do wish there was some kind of modification to that 6-up for the tree man, because I think a 6-up on a big monster like a tree man is just not enough to make them attractive enough an option to take.
Yeah, it would be nice if
with,
it scaled
with canon
up.
meta out there.
Yeah, I'd take it. You know, a 6-up on the dryads.
6-up on dryads
a
is fine.
5-up on the treekin, and a
4-up on the tree man.
Yeah,
I think just a 5-up on a
That'd be
tree
brutal.
man would have been nice to see.
Yeah.
Because it kind of is just, again, a part of the whole trend of the really cool big monster models not being attractive enough to actually
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah,
they just-
for sure.
play in the game.
I don't see any reason why it wasn't just a 5-up.
Yeah.
When the Forest Spirits originally came out, they had what was called the Demon Ward Save.
yeah.
And so demons got a 5-up ward, and I was really hoping that the Forest Spirits would get the same. But alas, it was not to be.
Yeah, it would have been
So-
cool if they had done it. It would have been probably too complicated to do that, but to do the same thing where Winds of Magic affects their ward save like the
that-
demons do. But,
It could have been, yeah. But
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it would have been a little complicated.
yeah,
I think the Blessings of the Ancient stands out. It's just a really nice rule because
it is super good.
it's-
Yeah.
with the mobility and the free forest, it's really easy to swing it. So that, I mean, in pretty much all the games I've played against you, for at least a good part of the game, your level 4 has always been casting at me from a forest.
Yep.
So it's a level 5 essentially you're competing against. And
Yeah, for sure. That is definitely nice. It's interesting though. It kind of makes the Wood Elves the best casters in the game.
kinda.
You know, especially when you consider, and we'll get to this later, they now have access to both high magic, dark magic, and all 8 lores in battle magic.
10 lores.
So you get 10 lores, and you can
10
cast
laws
as a
from
level 5.
Yeah.
Or what's even slightly better is your level 2s can cast as a level 3.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's really nice.
Core units then. So there's 4 core choices, which is, I mean, it's the same number as we had in the previous book, but they're slightly different. So obviously, number 1 there, the kind of the iconic one is the Glade Guard, aka the Wood Elf Archer.
And we've seen big changes here, right?
Yeah, so there's still 12 points a model. It's still the same stat profile. Now, one thing that we didn't mention in army-wide special rules, but that now applies to every elf model in the army, is that they've got always strikes first.
Yeah.
Which is a huge boost.
Yeah, they don't even put that in the army special rules because that's just
It's just a regular rule. It's
a regular elf rule now.
Yeah. So they have, they're now armed, instead of with the Glade Guard bow, they've got the Azrai longbow. So the difference here is that now if anyone in the army has a bow, they've got the Azrai longbow. And the old Glade Guard bow used to be strength 3, but strength 4 at short range. This is now strength 3, but armor piercing at any range.
Yeah.
So it's arguably better, arguably worse, depending on how you look at it.
Situational.
It's very situational, for
Yeah.
sure. Now, to bring it in line with all the rest of the 8th edition books, all the command options are 10 points. Still take a banner up to 25. 1 unit can take it.
Yeah.
Up to magic, up to 25. But the huge difference is the introduction of enchanted arrows.
yes.
So I was talking earlier about the ambiguity. The first thing about this that's ambiguous is when you read the rules, it says that these are enchanted items, but do not prevent a model from having a second enchanted item. What that is meant to mean is that if you're a hero character and you take one of these arrows, you can also take an enchanted item from the slot.
Yeah.
However, what the idiots on the internet are saying, and I apologize if you're listening and you think this, but you really should, get with the program.
Soapbox.
Yeah, is that that means that only one unit can have
Sure.
one of any type of arrow.
For the unique rule for
Yeah,
magic items.
but the thing that disproves that is, does that mean only one model in the unit
sure.
can take that?
Already the whole unit is taking that
Exactly.
arrow.
It just doesn't make any sense. So I think the majority of tournaments certainly are interpreting it now that your unit can have any of these different arrows. So, and you can have as many different units as you want. So there's 6 types. Let's go through and talk about them. Soapbox off. There we go. Sorry.
Okay. Well done.
Yeah.
That was short. That was a good, yeah.
Yeah.
Good rant. Good rant.
So the first one is, I'm actually going to go in reverse order from points. So at 5 points a model, you can get arcane bodkins. So this was an enchanted item in the previous book that a hero could take, or a lord. And they originally just negated armor saves. Now it's a -3 armor save. So that doesn't stack with the armor piercing, unfortunately. So it's straight up just -3 armor save. At 5 points a model.
So you're looking at a 17-point archer now.
17-point archer who's tough 3 with no armor save. It's
feeling pretty pricey.
Pretty pricey, yeah.
But that is, I mean, it's nice.
It is nice, but at the same time, it's only strength 3.
Yeah.
One thing that's been pointed out is that because it's not armor piercing, if you are taking lore of metal, and you give that buff from the lore of metal that grants armor piercing, then it's a -4.
Would it really be?
Yeah,
it would be.
It
yeah.
is, because it's not armor piercing.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
that's interesting.
armor piercing is a special rule, says that it gives an extra -1 to armor save,
But it can't stack.
but it doesn't stack with other armor piercing. This is not an armor piercing special rule. It is just a special rule that says it is -3 to armor save.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why would it not stack with the armor piercing from the?
Well, if you read the entry
Yeah, it's the only
underneath
one that
the
doesn't have
arcane
armor
bodkins,
piercing.
it does not have armor piercing.
Right, but it's the bow that has armor piercing,
Yes,
not
but-
the bodkin.
But if you read how the arrows work, it says each type of enchanted arrow replaces the profile of the Azrael longbow with the one shown in its entry, so it gets
Okay.
volley fire.
That is
No.
interesting. Yeah. So, all right,
Yeah, so that's a
technicality kind of, but
yeah. I don't think you're going to see these very much.
No.
I think they're super expensive for
Yeah.
what they get, and there are
For-
better options for dealing with armor.
As
Yeah,
we
especially
will.
3 more points, you can have something that does a lot better.
Yeah, for sure.
something
Something
we'll talk about later.
yeah. I don't think it's going to be any surprise that it's Way Watchers. I think everybody knows
People know
the
about
filth
Way
that is
Watchers now,
Way Watchers now, so it's not like we're surprising anyone with what we're talking
Yeah,
about.
I'd
Okay.
rather spend the 3 more points to guarantee no armor save.
Yeah,
versus-
exactly.
And with an extra
Yeah, all
ballistic
sorts of
skill
extra. Yeah.
also. Okay.
Yeah.
N360 line is
Well,
So verdict
we'll get there.
is
Shh.
not
No.
verdict is
That's
spend
all.
your points on the Way Watchers instead.
Yeah, for sure. So next option is Swift Shiver Shards
yeah.
at 4 points a model. This gives you multi-shot 2. Again, I think it's expensive for what it is. If you consider, for example, the repeater crossbow that Dark Elves can get, I think that's only 2 points a model.
Yeah, it's super
Well,
cheap.
you just pay for it as part of the profile.
Yeah.
The model is 11 points. No, 12 points.
Yeah, but I think there are some.
Oh, when you put them on Dark Riders,
Yeah, if
then
you
it's
put them on
2
Dark
points per
Riders, it's
model.
2 points a
you're right.
model.
Yeah.
So, and again, with Way Watchers, they have the ability to multi-shot as well. So this another one that feels like it's probably a waste of points.
Yeah.
Um,
Especially, I mean, we can compare it to one of the other arrow types, True Flight, when we get to that one.
yeah, for sure. And the reason that
we'll
I'm
probably see
working
that.
downward in points is because actually they get better as they get cheaper.
Probably, yeah.
So the next two are actually a pair. You've got Starfire and Moonfire. And these are, I like these. I like them because they're flavorful. I think one of them is worth taking. So these are flaming arrows, magical and flaming, and you get +1 to wound against either the forces of order or the forces of destruction, depending on which one you take. Starfire is the one that wounds the forces of destruction, and I think that one is actually worth taking. and I have taken it. Because if you think about everything that has regen...
So everybody tries to put something flaming in the army, right?
Yeah, for sure.
For regen.
At least one, yeah.
And
the ones you're scared of are trolls, chimeras, and A-bombs, right?
forces of destruction.
They're all forces of destruction.
So,
and they're all tough 5. And so this then makes it your wounding on a 5-up instead of a 6-up.
and it's worth remembering that this is, if you're going to go enchanted arrows at all, then this is your option for flaming, because you can't put the banner of eternal flame, or you can put it on, but it doesn't apply to magical attacks, so it's not going to stack with them.
And also now, because your standard bearer is 10 points, you've got 10 points for your standard bearer, 10 points for the banner, so that's 20 points. It's only another 20, I think, to get a full unit of Starfire at that point.
We're getting +1 to wound.
+1 to wound.
So, yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, would you take a 30-point magic banner that was flaming and +1 to wound? And, maybe I would.
Score.
I think that's a reasonable one to take.
I would say.
I think in just one unit, either... and we'll get to this in a minute, but there's a bunch of different units that can take these magic arrows. So
it always does sting a little bit to take something quite specific in an all-comers list. When you feel like you're paying for a bonus that you might go to a tournament and it doesn't pay off in a single one of your games.
Yeah, it's true, and it's 40 points, which is
right.
Not.
You're always going to get the flaming, but. You're only going to get the...
But even then, like when you take the flaming, sometimes that doesn't even work against some armies. So
you could end up paying a lot for nothing with
I don't think I would put it on Glade Guard anyways. I would take those, but I'd put them on the Scouts.
Yep.
All you need is the 1 wound. You're not looking for a bucket of
just
wounds.
strip regen for the phase. And
the Scouts would have the mobility to move around and get that flaming shot where you need it.
Yep.
So I don't think on the Glade Guard it's a good choice.
Yep.
Sure. So
unless
let's get
you're
into
fighting forces of destruction all the time.
If you're tailoring your list, who you're going up
against your
then
buddy.
sure, there's going to be some excellent matchups for those arrows.
Yeah, for sure. In campaigns, for example, when you're coming up against...
You're going to go double A-bomb.
Yeah. Or, you know what? Even if you're coming up against, like, if I was going to be fighting like High Elves or something, I might consider taking those Moonfire shot for the extra +1 to wound.
Yeah.
Why not?
Then you'd be wounding on a 3-up.
Wounding on a 3-up, against their elves. That's pretty good.
That's really good.
And you've got the, you can murder White Lions.
Yeah.
Because you've got the magical shot.
And both the Moonfire and Starfire, they are armor piercing.
They're armor piercing. Yeah. All the other arrows are armor piercing. It's just the Arcade Bodkins.
So you're going to, against most elves, you're going to
you're
going to get through that light armor that they're wearing.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so now we're on to the ones that are 3 points a model.
And the ones that are awesome.
These are the money right here. Yeah. So there's 2 types. One is True Flight arrows, which, as the name suggests, ignore all to hit penalties. Which
so good.
It's...
I think when I first read that, it didn't strike me how good it was, but the first time I played against it, I really realized how good it was. Things are like over the other side of the table, moving, shooting at skirmishes, and still hitting on 3s.
Yeah,
yep.
It's still incredible. Hitting on 3s. It's really good.
Take out those chameleon skinks.
Chameleon skinks in a building. I'm like, whatever. It actually gives Wood Elves a fighting chance in a Watchtower scenario.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm going to hit your guys on 3s in there. They better be ready for it.
You can have a line of them behind another unit just firing through, taking no penalties.
They can be at the back of the table, behind your line, no penalties, shooting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a really, really nice arrow.
It is. It is only still strength 3. It's armor piercing, but what I find that it's really, really good at is chaff deletion. Right? You can eliminate the enemy chaff very, very
especially
effectively.
Skirmishy chaff, which is often hard to get rid of.
Skirmishy chaff, or it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Even I think I've even shot your chariots off with
probably
with some
sounds
of it.
about right.
I blacked out. I don't remember.
Compare this to the multi-shot arrows. A lot of the time you're going to be you're usually going to be either moving or at long range.
Yep.
And then you're paying a penalty to do the
Multi-shot.
multi-shot as well. So
you're hitting
almost
on fives,
always
yeah.
these are going to be at least as good, probably better.
Yeah,
And
for
a point
sure.
cheaper.
Yeah,
So-
from the math hammer perspective, you're going to get
Yeah.
more hits, even though you're less shots.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one here is the Hagbane tips, which very simply gives you poison attacks.
Favorite.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Faves. I think a combination of the two just
Oh,
makes
yeah.
really solid. You've
Super
got the
versatile.
poison for taking off really tough stuff. You've
Yep.
got the true flight for just picking off full units of chaff.
I agree.
Really nice.
Yep, I agree for sure.
combo.
So the other neat thing about the Hagbane tips is that they are magical. So this, there's a downside in it, the Banner of the World Dragon, you can still hide behind that. But the upside is, for example, the Kadai Destroyer, who, for regular poison, I think for regular poison, didn't we determine that he only forces rerolls on rolls to wound?
Right.
So poison,
Right, so poison breaks through that
him anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
maybe
this
that's
way, the
not such a
true
big deal.
flight is getting through that as well, and just
Yeah, that's true.
peppering them.
Any of these are not having to reroll, which is kind of nice.
And ethereal is obviously where these shine.
Yeah,
You're just pulling off
the Hex Wraiths.
and even spirit hosts can end
Yep.
up being a pain when they get into the wrong place on the battlefield.
Yeah.
You're just picking those off
Yeah.
early game from the back of the table.
Yeah, I had two games in the last tournament against Vampire Counts, and both of them were rocking 10 Hex Wraiths, which normally will wreck a
Sure.
fair amount of an army because
And it really throws you off because you've got to get your one dude with a magical weapon into the right place to
Yeah.
deal with that unit.
yeah, no,
Whereas you're
I was just like he hid that unit. One of them hid the unit, and the other one didn't quite realize exactly what was going to happen when he moved into range, and so it was kind of embarrassing actually.
That's
So
gonna hurt.
yeah, so those are the magical arrows. Those are available across a bunch of units, and we'll mention them whenever we get to them. I think it opens up a bunch of options. It addresses some of the shortcomings of the army, but it addresses them in a shooty way, for sure. So
Which is fun for what else?
it's fun. What I found is, with new toys, it's a little easy to go overboard on exactly what you're bringing and how much of them. So
like, oh, I could take all of this.
all the shooting, yeah.
So going back to Glade Guard, which is what got us into the magic arrows, our two favorite options end up as 15 points per model.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the minimum unit of 10 with a musician, you're looking at 160 points.
160, yep.
So it seems like a pretty good core unit to me.
It's not bad. It's very fragile.
It's very fragile, and
It used to be 126 for my 10 plus musician.
yeah.
So I'm now giving up 34 more points.
What do
But
you
you're
think
getting a
is
lot
the
more use out
overall
of them.
comparison? I know you've used them in different ways, so it's hard to
Yeah.
compare them apples to apples. but-
It's so I think the True Flight encourages castling, right? It encourages you to
at least with some units,
Yeah.
not necessarily the whole army.
no, not the whole army, but for example, now if I take True Flight, let's say I took 21 archers, I could have them in 3 ranks of 7
In a forest.
in a venom thicket
Yeah.
at the back of my army, and it doesn't matter what's in front of it, they're going to hit on 3s.
I think that's a pretty solid way to run archers, it seems, because then if anything charges them, you've got 21 attacks back, you ASF poison.
Yep. Yeah, but to me, it's kind of, for me personally, I find that style of play kind of dull. Mm-hmm. So I probably wouldn't do it. I haven't done it yet, but I can see that it's very effective.
Yeah. You only have to, you can, if we, we might go into talk about some combat builds later, you can really just you can have your one unit who's dedicated to sit in that forest at the back picking chaff off while the rest of the army is highly mobile combat stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's a
I don't
really negative play style.
Yeah, I don't think it necessarily encourages castling. It just allows you to protect them better.
Yeah, I think
So-
that's true.
Because-
It kind of feels a little bit like other people's war machines. Where there's something at the back, like, and more I'm thinking like bolt throwers or whatever. They tend to not be mobile. They're at the back, and eventually you're going to want to have to get in there. But now it's got like 21 wounds and
Yeah.
poison attacks and
That's awesome.
ASF.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you think about that unit, it's going to be
And it's going to annihilate you with stand and shoot because of no modifiers.
it's going to be 350 points of unit,
Yeah, that's
you know,
expensive.
which
It
is
is
half
expensive.
your core.
Yeah.
Too expensive
So-
in my book.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know. Just the ability to pick off a chaff unit per turn in the
Yep.
early game is,
Yeah.
it's not bad.
especially going up against fast cav heavy armies, pull off a whole unit of fast cav each turn.
Yeah.
Feels pretty tasty to me.
All right.
Mhm.
So
Okay,
let's move
that's
on.
Glade God.
Yeah, let's move on to Dryads. So
Took a big hit in this
They
book.
took a hit, yeah.
Dryads took
Poor chaps.
took 3 hits
Which is
and got 1 bump. So the biggest hit is the strength hit.
mhm.
They've gone from strength 4 down to strength 3.
Just makes them ordinary, kind of, doesn't it? Makes
It
them
does.
like an orc rather than.
Right. And they also took an initiative hit down from 6 to 5, which, for most people, oh, that's not a big deal. But when you're fighting other elves, it was great to be canceling out their rerolls.
Sure.
So that's another hit. We already talked about the forest spirit hit, but I think the one that makes them unusable for me, and I know I'm kind of jumping the gun here though, is that they're no longer skirmishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now you have a 25 millimeter base infantry model that can't take a musician.
Yeah.
Um,
It's really that maneuverability hit. It's not it's not the other aspects of being ranked up. It's just the
No, and I
the
would have-
maneuverability hit.
I would have loved to have, the ranked up Dryads if I could A, take a musician, or B, allow me to pay for an upgrade for skirmish.
Yeah.
That would have been
Right.
fine, right?
I mean,
even
for
at
me-
strength 3 with skirmish, I would have taken.
I
them.
thought Dryads moving to before this new book came out. I thought that's one of the things that Wood Elves really needed to compete was to be able to have a good block of Dryads to hold their own and to give you a combat anvil.
Yep.
But I was imagining them, with some kind of musician option, call it whatever you want, like a wood whistler or whatever.
Well,
Wood whistle.
I don't know.
Panpipe.
Just some kind of musician option that lets them reform and the strength 4.
yeah.
If they had just kept them like that and ranked them up, ooh, that would be a nice little combat block.
Even if they'd pushed the points value up per model.
Yeah, sure.
Because
It
at
would
that
still
point,
be a very
they're kind
viable
of
combat block.
they're as tough as Saurus and as fast as elves. I always thought they were the best core in the game.
Yeah.
Previously, the thing that let them down was no static combat resolution
Right.
because you're skirmishers,
Mhm.
right? So you always ran them just 8, or fairly low, as low as you could go, and they would wreck face for their points value. Now it's they don't have the armor piercing, so they're only strength 3. Their ward save is worse.
Yeah.
So they die more easily. So
Seems like a damn shame.
It
They
is a
either
damn
needed
shame.
to just leave them as they were and rank them up, or nerf the stat line like they did, leave them skirmish and bring the points down a bit, and then there'd be a nice throwaway unit kind of thing still.
yeah, so they brought the points down by 1. They're now only
Yeah.
11 points a model.
The combination of those changes is just
It's
it
harsh.
really hits them there.
I've run them. The thing that you absolutely fear is that low armor save, and you literally can do nothing against it. You might be wounding.
Right, it's the only thing without armor piercing.
Well,
in the army.
the only time I would take these is if I was taking a Venom Thicket as my main forest, and that unit would never leave the Venom Thicket.
And you would just push the thicket up the forest and then put them in it and kind of anchor a certain point
A certain
on
part of
Yep.
the table.
The
that
table.
Yeah,
then
because then
becomes
they're tough
impassable.
4 with 2 attacks, poison,
and hatred.
and hatred.
So they did get hatred. That was their bump.
Yeah.
They've still got fear. And so now even with the 2 attacks, they are going to reroll. They do get to reroll even against elves. But now being only initiative 5, chances are more of them are going to be dead by the time you're actually fighting.
Right.
Well, yeah, they don't have always strikes first like the elves
They don't
do.
have ASF, exactly.
Yeah, but
So-
if they're against other elves, I don't think they're going to fare very well. But I would not want to face these guys
with poison.
With poison
Yeah,
against
for sure not.
a monster or anything else. you
Yeah.
know. It just wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah, but I think as we'll see later, there are actually some better options for doing the same thing.
Yep.
And I think that's what really kills them is that no matter what role you're intending them to play, there's something else that plays it better.
And this really goes to the main problem of the book, which is the internal balance between the elfy options and the tree options.
Well, even in inter-elf options, I think
Inter-elf options.
I think the balance is not great. But we'll talk about that once we've gone through everything. The biggest concern that I had about the models from a Dryads, I was worried that they wouldn't rank up. Because there were skirmishers, and I think somebody else stuck half of them together for me. But I plopped them on a movement tray, and then they're fine.
Okay.
Yeah, that 25 mil base really helps a lot.
And they're kind of spindly, so you can move them around, and they'll rank up okay.
Sweet.
Okay, so Glade Riders are next. So Glade Riders are fast cavalry. Their stat profile hasn't changed. They get ASF now, of course, being elves.
Armor-piercing bow and spear.
They have an armor-piercing bow and an armor-piercing spear.
Yeah,
it's the first time the Azrae spear pops up.
Yeah, so the Azrae spear just as strength as... I think it's a strength.
Just a spear, but with
strength as user.
Yeah, it's just how spears work normally, except armor piercing.
No, it's not just how spears act normally.
We got into this, didn't we?
So
we noticed something.
This is the thing. It does not have the rules of the spear. It has the special rules, armor piercing, and fight in extra ranks, which means that you can still use it on a turn after you've charged into combat or after the first turn of combat.
Oh.
Right. So whereas most mounted models, after you are,
that is a big difference.
After you charge,
you're still not getting the strength bonus. You're only getting the strength bonus on the charge.
It does say that.
But then with the actual spear, it says you literally put the spear down and are then using your hand weapon, which of course with the Azrae spear would mean you're then putting that down and losing your armor piercing.
Yep.
Right.
But this one doesn't say that. So you will just you'll keep the spear. So keep your armor piercing, even in turns.
But that's only when mounted, right?
Right, when mounted.
When mounted.
So on infantry, it still works the same.
Yeah, they always fight with their spears. Yeah.
Okay.
It's just as a wood elf player, if somebody tells you that you no longer have a spear after the first round of combat,
the answer
on
is
your calf,
that's not true.
The answer is you do, and you can argue that point.
Yeah, and I suspect that will get FAQ'd. And there's a couple of other things along that vein that will get FAQ'd. I think it feels more like an oversight.
But as we speak.
Yes, but as we speak, that's the way it should be played. And so the big difference for the Glade Riders, they've dropped from 24 points a model down to 19.
Super good.
And they gain the Ambusher special rule.
Blessing and a curse, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's not an optional rule. You must ambush, and at that point, it's all, like you said, it's a blessing and a curse, right?
You can kind of build an army around it and build a strategy around it.
And actually, at Wet Coast, the guy who finished second overall brought the Wood Elves and did exactly that. His entire corps was Glade Riders, 3 units of 10, and the rest of his army, I think he had a Tree Man, an Eagle, and then a whole bunch of fast cav in a big unit.
Sure.
So
you just can't, you can build an effective strategy around them, but you just can't expect to use them the same as the other elves are using their fast cav, where you have the
95-point redirecting.
Exactly.
Unit.
Your redirector who's there at the beginning makes the vanguard. You can strategize about where they're going to get with the vanguard, who they're going to redirect.
Yep.
You just end up not being able to use them that way.
I took these guys in the game that I did play. I took 1 unit of them with True Flight. And
because they can get all the magic arrows.
Yeah, thankfully they came on turn 2.
Yep.
I mean, that's the other thing. I had been playing 7th edition Ambushers rules for the longest time, and I didn't realize that just a 3-up and they're on turn 2 no matter what. So they did great. they came on turn 2, they started removing models that turn, and for the rest of the game, because they're so fast at movement, and I got to bring them on right on the board where I needed them. The rest of the game, they were just mopping stuff up for me. It was so great. I think they're good.
Yeah.
But the fact that you can't depend on them to be there turn 1.
They're definitely never there turn 1.
Yeah.
Turn 2, I mean, you can usually bank on them for the second half of the game,
Yeah.
but you can't bank on them for the first half.
Yeah.
Which is the kind of thing, with fast cav, with a vanguard and a turn of moving that you're missing out on by having ambush.
Yep.
Those two moves can pretty much get you to anywhere on the table that you need to be anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
Seems like there's a lot of redundancy.
Yeah.
And maybe if they do 9th edition ambushers, the ambusher rule will change.
Will be optional, maybe.
Yeah.
And be optional, which if that happens, then these guys, you're going to see them flooding the table.
Yeah. For sure. If ambusher was optional, these guys are amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
Even without any magic arrows, they're a 95.5 wound redirector. That
Has armor piercing.
It has armor piercing and can harass stuff. With Hagbane tips, they're probably the ultimate in War Machine Hunters.
Sure.
Because at that point they're only 110 points. You get 5 shots of poison. They're. If they were not ambushers, or if ambushers was optional, these guys would be phenomenal.
If it's just optional, you just decide as you're deploying whether they're deploying regular or ambushes. It would be awesome because you can respond to what you see on the table as to whether you want these guys on there or ambushing.
Yeah, but unfortunately, as it stands, I think I think 1 unit is good because it's not a huge amount of points. 1 small unit, but beyond that, you have to construct an entire strategy.
Right, which is obviously what this guy did quite successfully.
Yeah,
at Wet Coast.
Yeah. Okay. And so they can also take a magic standard up to 25 points. So that's worth noting.
Yeah,
Any good options there?
You can get so many magic standards in here.
You can get a lot of magic banners in this army.
For me, I'm like, I can have 1, and that's on my
your
BSB.
whole goblin army.
and if I take that guy has
terrible
a 5-up armor save and a 6-up parry, and he just dies if somebody looks at him.
Yeah.
It's
the same as Dark Elves, really. Every unit can just take a magic
it's
banner.
so crazy.
Yeah.
So spoiled.
I'm not sure I would ever take it, but it would be something you would have to be constructing a strategy around.
No,
and
I don't see much advantage to
would
it.
probably be the leadership banner or something along those lines.
Because they're going to be operating outside.
Or the extra movement.
Maybe extra movement, but with them being ambushers, you can bring them on from the side of the table. I mean, who knows? Okay, and then
last core option.
Yeah, the last core option is Eternal Guard. So these guys are 11 points a model. They in their previous book, they were 12 points. They were special, but you could bring them into core if you were running a lord, one of the fighty lords, right? So they've just gone flat out and made them core. The really cool part, they have not changed their profile. So they're still weapon skill 5,
core.
Leadership,
beautiful.
Leadership 9. So LD9 core. Yeah. So in the previous book, if you had a noble or a lord in the unit, they were stubborn. Now they're just flat out stubborn.
So good.
Oh.
Yeah.
For a core unit, that is delightful.
For a core unit, they've got
tough 3.
They're still tough 3,
but they're stubborn.
Yeah.
I love these guys.
Yeah, I think from the models are stunning.
Yeah.
Yep, they got new models.
The fluff for them, I just love the idea of having spear elves just ready to fight to the last.
Yep.
To defend the forest. I think it's so cool.
Yeah.
So these guys are fluff-wise, my favorite guys in the core section. But
yeah, I like the new models. I'm not a big fan of the helmets that they've got.
But you would just put the sweet hoods on them
Yeah.
instead.
Yeah,
Give them
of course,
the ranger
of course,
hoods.
I do like the hoods.
Awesome.
The other thing is the weapon change. Which
Yep.
was
They've
different
got
last time.
the Azrai spear now. They used to have this special Eternal Guard fighting style, which was basically a way of saying We know you've got old Wood Elf Spearmen, and now we've brought out this new Eternal Guard model that has a two-headed spear, the Sirath. So we're going to say that they've got a special fighting style, and it gave them an extra attack, and it gave them the ability to fight in extra ranks. So they've lost that extra attack, but they've still got the ability to fight in extra ranks. And if they're in a forest, it's an extra rank.
Sure.
And it's the Azrai Spear, so it's armor piercing. So one of the things you used to have to do with Eternal Guard was give them the Razor Banner. 45 points plus the Standard Bearer. That was a pretty considerable
Built-in armor
investment.
piercing is awesome.
Very, very good. So
when you're kicking out that many attacks at weapon skill 5 and ASF.
Rerolling to wound
Rerolling.
if you're in the woods.
Rerolling the wands to wound possibly as well.
Yeah. If you're in the woods and it's a venom thicket,
So
it's poison.
These guys are better than any other spear elf.
They are for sure, especially
so.
especially because like you said, which I didn't realize this, the series spear, it isn't a spear by the definition of the rule book. It is a separate weapon that fights in extra ranks, so you will get to use it if you charge. You'll get that extra rank.
Well, for infantry, I don't think it makes a difference.
It does.
it does, yeah, because the Azrai, the spear says, explicitly says you don't get it in the charge.
Otherwise, on a cav model, it works just like a spear.
Yep.
It's +1, except that it's armor piercing, right? But for the foot.
So there's a difference cav and foot then? Because the cav difference is you're always fighting with the spear in every round.
So you always get armor piercing.
You always get armor piercing.
Yeah, but you only get the +1 strength and
on the charge.
On the charge, yeah. But now with the foot one, that's a good point.
So
charge and still do armor piercing.
So people who play Wood Elves or play against them don't get hung up on the word spear in the name of the weapon.
Yeah, it's a different weapon.
Because it's not a spear by the definition.
They should have
of the
just
rule
called
book.
it like something else.
Yeah,
like the Sirath or something.
Yeah.
You know,
Azrai poker.
Poker.
Sharpened stick.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I think these guys are a great choice. So I would always give them a shield, which brings them up to 12 points each.
Yeah.
But then they're still only a couple of points more than a High Elf or Dark Elf Spearman. And the bonuses of having, the extra weapon skill and that built-in armor piercing and stubborn.
Yeah, they're going to kick the
nice.
butt of any other spearman.
Sure.
At weapon skill 5 for sure and stubborn. I think they're fantastic.
A horde of these guys 5 deep in the woods.
Yes.
Every model could attack.
Every model attacks. Yes.
Oh. Yes. No, six deep could fight in the woods.
No, only 5.
Horde.
You've a horde. Horde gives you
2
3
ranks normally. Horde. Oh yeah.
So up to 5.
Up to
so
5
you
ranks.
Get 50. Yeah. And the wood is
Ricky looks
actually
pretty happy
the
about
venom
this.
thicket would be big enough to incorporate the whole horde.
It would hold the whole thing.
So it just creates a no-go zone on the entire board.
Bring it, and then you put ooh. We'll get to that magic standard later, but oh my goodness.
Death Star. I mean, you could definitely build a Death Star around these guys. I like them as just a smallish unit. I think like 21 in 7x3, so you're still getting the maximum 21 attacks against pretty much anything you're going to fight. Yeah. And I would just slap the movement banner on them because movement 6 infantry is badass. You're just getting them. The role I see for these guys is, late game. You in the Wood Elf army, as we're going to go into, you have a lot of fast, hard-hitting stuff. These guys are just getting over to break steadfast when you finally need to break a unit after you've done a crap ton of damage
or
to them.
They're the last line to take the charge and hold it while everybody else countercharges in.
Yeah, and with such a small footprint, you can get in the way of something very easily, and you'll lose combat because you're only tough 3 with light armor and a shield. But you're stubborn. You're going to stay there.
Leadership 9.
You'll poke them full of holes.
So I could also see potentially throwing the Gleaming Pennant into this unit, depending on how the rest of your army is put together.
Which one's that?
That's the one that allows you a reroll.
Just in case stubborn fails you once.
Or you're outside your BSB.
Even the leadership banner, because then you're stubborn leadership 10.
Which is not bad.
Yeah.
I could definitely see the leadership banner, especially if you're going to take a wizard general and bunker her in there, or you're taking a hero general, either leadership 9. So
so good. Yeah, these guys, I think, paired with the Glade Guard, just make for a solid
That's
core
a really nice
choice.
core, I think.
And I agree. And I think that's the huge difference from the last book, right? It used to be in the last book, you were kind of going for a ton of Glade Guard and some Dryads.
Some dryads.
And Dryads, depending on who you were fighting against, they could even be potentially optional, because the strength 4 bows and the Glade Guard could do so much damage, right? And
there was just a paucity of other good choices.
There were, the Glade Riders were so expensive. Yeah. The Glade Guard Scouts, which was the other option, were also very expensive. So yeah, now Eternal Guard, Glade Guard, and that to me makes a whole ton of sense, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Here's your 2 basic warriors.
Fluff-wise, it's real
Archers,
nice.
spearmen. I mean, that brings me back to the old days. And they're both pretty good, for different reasons.
Yeah.
Which is good because you know what, I'm fed up taking 40 archers.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest,
Sure.
in my core. So
I love couple units Glade Guard and 1 medium
unit of
Eternal
Eternal Guard
Guard.
seems
That's-
like a reasonably good core to me.
Yeah,
Yep.
I like it.
And it doesn't feel like a tax.
Right.
Feels like those would be reasonable choices, even if you didn't have to take them.
Indeed.
Special. There is a lot of good stuff in Special. So, Special actually used to be the weakest section in the 6th edition book. I ran armies with 0 Special at times. And
I took War Dancers all the time, but that was because of my theme.
yeah, I towards the end of the book, I was running a single unit of War Dancers and a single unit of Wild Riders, minimum amount of models in each, and they were pretty effective for what they did. But I wouldn't wanted to have run more.
Yeah.
That is definitely no longer the case. So, let's start with the one of the new units.
Yes.
And it's infantry, so Ricky's super happy. So Wildwood Rangers. This is the second half of the dual kit that the Eternal Guard come in. They are hands down my favorite new model.
Yeah.
From the ones that were released. They're beautiful cloaked light armor carrying what can best be described as Klingon batleths.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, they look so sweet.
Yeah, so this is the great weapon unit.
I love that they just found a way to make those weapons look unique, like nothing else in Warhammer.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because elves with great weapons is pretty heavily overdone in the other 2
Yep.
elfy armies, but they just made them look special.
Yeah, and I think both the other armies they've got big swords, they've got big axes.
Yeah.
And this is like, let's make a sword axe. Yeah. So
The sex.
yeah, a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. Yeah, that'd be cool. Wildwood Rangers on the sax. Okay, so these guys, they're same profile as Eternal Guard. And the fluff behind them is that they are from the Wildwood area of Athelloran, so that's its own kind of province or whatever, region, realm, whatever they call them. And it's the place where Coadil and all the other crazy elf-hating forest spirits have been locked up behind a bunch of waystones. And what happens is, every now and again, these crazy-ass forest spirits come out of the Wildwood, break free of the Waystones, and the Wildwood Rangers are the ones that go and kick their butts and then they bind them back up inside the Wildwood again.
And they're pretty determined about it too, right?
They're pretty determined indeed.
There's some nice fluff about how, they'll show up to help in some battle in a far-off place, and people will think they're just, there to help with the battle, but it's all really because the opposing army has some, concealed tree spirit in it somewhere.
Yep.
Who they've been hunting across the entire old world.
Yeah, and a lot of the time it's like these guys are in here because their children have been taken by the forest spirits, or something bad's happened in them. I really like the fluff of these guys.
Yep.
They're pretty cool.
Favorite.
Yeah. So fluff plus cool model. So let's go through the rules for them. They're 11 points a model. At that point,
Bargain.
you do not pay for any upgrades on them whatsoever. So they are equal cheapest unit in the game. They come with a great weapon and light armor, one of the few armored units in the Wood Elves. They've got ASF, so with the Great Weapon, that means they're striking in initiative order, which is 5. Forest Stalker, like we mentioned earlier, and then they're immune to Psych because they're always hunting these great, terrible.
You'd have to be really
scary forest spirit dudes, and then they've got this Guardians of the Wildwood special rule, and this is a neat and fluffy special rule, which basically says if you're fighting against something that causes fear or terror, you get +1 attack.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, it's not quite as good as having 2 attacks to start off with, for sure. But you know what? It's not a bad boost, and when you consider that with great weapons, a lot of the time what you want to get them into is something that's a little bit bigger and tougher. And there's so many armies that have fear-causing and terror-causing units that it's not hard to pick a matchup.
Yeah, and I mean, even anymore, we don't even think of fear or terror really because it became so benign in this edition. So just the fact that they're probably going to get those 2 attacks most of the time.
Yep.
And
against ogres, you're always getting 2 attacks.
Right. Any undead, Tomb Kings.
Yep. Demons. All that's 4 armies where you're getting +2 attack, +1 attack against everything in their army.
Yep.
And then there's so many monstrous cav and monstrous infantry upgrades for every army that it's not going to be difficult to get that.
Yeah, and this is something that the last book really was lacking. You didn't have can openers, and they gave you a can opener.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it's not bad. I don't think you don't want to have these guys up against the 1-up heavy cav or heavy.
It would be nice if they could take
cav.
so they can take a 25-point standard.
Yep.
It'd be nice if they could take a 50-point one, so you could put the armor piercing banner on them, and
that would be a reasonable boost for sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the only way they can get that right now is with the BSB, which is sucky way to use your BSB.
So I don't know. I do like these guys, but I feel, comparing them to other great weapon elves who are in the game, I feel like you come up a little bit shortchanged for your 11 points. Comparing them to like a swordmaster, let's say, who always has the extra attack, who has better weapon skill, who has heavy armor, gets the parry against shooting attacks.
Right. But these guys are dirt cheap, though. I think a swordmaster's
13.
They're 13.
So it's only a 2-point difference. I feel like I get more for my money with the swordmaster. Although I'm not saying this is a bad choice.
Yeah, immune to psych is strong.
That is strong.
Fighting in an extra rank in the woods is going to be strong.
Yeah, the swordmaster's always fighting an extra rank.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah, that's true.
The re-rolling ones in a forest, but again, it's situational. So I think they're decent, but
they're definitely not. I mean, you can't do a direct comparison and expect them to come out as
sure,
as good.
Because kind of great weapon infantry is the bread and butter of a high elf army, really, whereas this is a little bit more of a niche thing for the Wood Elves.
Yeah.
So,
and I think where I could see these guys doing reasonably well is, again, a smallish unit, a little bit like your Eternal Guard. In fact, I think they make a pretty good complement to Eternal Guard in an infantry list. And they're going to be great in a forest because of that extra rank. So you're getting an extra set of attacks. But I could see, a unit somewhere between 15 and 20. Or maybe 15 and 21, being a reasonably effective combat block. The downside is what you were mentioning earlier. The Forest Strider does not allow you to remain steadfast.
Yeah, which is one of the things that Eternal Guard can just not worry about because they're stubborn.
Stubborn anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so they don't
but if
care.
These could be stubborn in the forest.
Yeah, but if they could, well, not even be stubborn, just keep their rank bonus,
Yep.
Instead of being disrupted in the woods, then they would be really nasty in the woods. But again, giving them poison, a venom thicket, it's gonna do some damage. Yep. Especially if you are up against something that does fear, you can maybe reform wide and maximize those number of attacks, and then unload with the poison and the strength 5. You're going to get through some armor saves. You're going to do a lot of initial wounds.
Sure.
Because, poison on something high strength is always really nasty.
Yep.
So,
Yep. I think that, the downside is, obviously with the great weapon, you lose your rerolls.
yeah.
But you are weapon skill 5.
Mm-hmm.
So against, most things,
You're hitting on
core
threes,
troops
yeah.
and even a lot of special troops, you're hitting on 3s.
Well, and a lot of monsters.
Exactly,
Almost
the
all
monsters,
monsters are
yeah.
3,
Yeah.
and some are 4. So
Yeah.
you're looking at pretty much cutting things down pretty quick.
Yeah, you're hitting on 3s. You're probably wounding on 4s or 5s, but you've got multiple attacks. So if you're 7 wide, you're getting 14 attacks from your front rank and another 7 from your back. So that's 21 attacks. That's not bad going. You're going to get a reasonable amount. You're going to get enough wounds to kill your average monster in a single round of combat.
And
Sure.
like you said, these guys can take 1 standard. This is the unit that if I was taking them, I'd probably put the flaming banner on, because me and Tom were talking about that on the break, that they're going to be the ones that you want to pair against the Chimera and the other stuff. If you can manage to get them there, you're going to get rid
Hell
of that
pits.
regen. Yeah, the hell pits, things like that.
Yep.
You're going to probably wait to see those things deployed, and you're going to put these guys opposite them and run them at it.
Yep.
And if you have that fear or the flame banner on there, because you don't need to put the flame banner on your shooters now, because that you can get that through the arrows.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
Trouble with them is they're really soft,
yeah,
which in combat you're going to expect anyway, but against, anything with a little bit of shooting, bit of peppering with some dark elf crossbows, and this unit's going to be gone.
Yeah. I think that's true across the board pretty much. And my feeling on that is if they're shooting at these guys, they're probably shooting at the wrong unit. There's other units that are scarier that you probably should be shooting at. Maybe. I think I love the models in these guys.
Yeah.
I love the fluff. I think I don't think they're a terrible choice.
Not at
No.
all. And in certain builds, a very good choice.
Yeah.
Really depends on how you're building the army.
Yeah. And I think the paint scheme that they have for them in the book is
The
beautiful.
kind of autumnal theme.
Oh my
it's
God.
really,
it's
great.
drool worthy. I really liked it. So yeah, overall, really like this as an addition to the army.
Definitely not something you're going to see in every army, but
No.
something that can be used effectively.
Yeah, and that's nice.
Yeah.
So okay, I'm going through the digital edition. Yes, because I bought that one too. So I don't know what's next in your books, but next up for me is War Dancers.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's what we got.
All right, so it looks like it's the same order. So War Dancers, beautifully iconic for the Games Workshop Wood Elves. These are kind of like the woad painted warriors. They got the blue tattoos. They've got always got a ton of blades on them and hardly any clothes, and they basically dance around and kick the butt of anything that walks.
Yeah.
And the Orion books feature the War Dancers quite heavily. So I was looking forward to great things for them. So let's talk about what they've got. So they're 15 points a model. They are a weapon skill and initiative 6, which is pretty great. Other than that, it's a standard elf profile. So weapon skill 6 on a rank and file model. There's only a few that have that in the whole
infantry,
game.
yeah, but they're not rank and file though. That's
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
on a non-character model,
Right, yeah.
So yeah, they are skirmishers. They've got 2 hand weapons, so that one attack, they get that extra attack. They're ASF and Forest Stalker and immune to Psych. And then, as I mentioned, they have talismanic tattoos. So they had this in the previous edition. They've taken a little bit of a nerf. They just grant a 6-up ward. They used to be a 6-up ward plus MR1, which meant you at least had a 5-up ward against fireballs and so forth. So it's just a 6-up ward now. And then they've got the Shadow Dances of Loic special rule. So they had this in the previous book. These are basically the dances that they choose to do at the start of each combat. So you can't do the same one two turns in a row.
correct.
And they have a choice of 4 different ones that they can do. The first one is Whirling Death, where they get armor piercing and killing blow. Second one is Storm of Blades, where they get +1 attack. Third one is Shadow's Coil, where they get a 3-up ward. And the fourth one is the Woven Mist, which is enemy units in base contact with the unit receive no combat result bonus for extra ranks. So, let's talk about those a little bit. The Whirling Death, AP and Killing Blow. I think that's probably the one that you're going to use the most often.
That's your offensive option,
It
right?
is your
Especially
offensive
for
option.
characters. When you send,
Yeah,
how many attacks can you get on a character with that? You could get
6, 7 if you have a champ.
Well, if you
or if you have extra,
if
and
you're
a second
supporting
rank
too.
as well.
If you have a supporting rank, you can get another 3, so
you
you
get
can
10 attacks on a character with
Yeah.
AP and
I
Killing
actually I did use that dance, and I was surprised. I was like, oh,
By
that
the
worked quite
killiness.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually killed some stuff with it.
Yeah, against
pretty nice.
infantry or cavalry. I think it shines against cavalry heroes, right?
Right.
Cavalry lords.
Yeah.
Like against empire, against vampire counts. The things that don't necessarily have like super high toughness, although the toughness doesn't really matter for killing blow
right.
purposes. But where you might otherwise struggle to get through like a 1-up armor save or whatever
Yeah.
else.
The other nice thing is if you do that dance and you are in the woods, then you get to re-roll the ones and maybe get another killing blow.
Yep,
So
which is kind of nice.
yeah,
But killing blow is hit and miss, and you're still only strength 3. So if you're not doing anything with killing blow, like against anything that's not infantry or cavalry, you're kind of you're struggling with this one.
Right.
yeah. And they used to be in the last edition they had +1 strength on the charge.
They had +1 strength on the charge.
But they lost that
and they
this
lost it.
time.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and the idea behind that was half of the models had great weapons, and the other half had 2 blades, and so they basically said, well, you get an extra attack and you get +1 strength on the charge, and I think they really miss it having only strength 3.
Yeah.
It kind of hurts.
How do you like them as a kind of supporting unit to try and take the use the negate rank bonus one?
Yeah, so there's another ambiguity here, of course, which is it says you receive no combat result bonus for extra ranks. So the question there was, does that mean that Skaven don't get their extra, their strength and numbers special rule? So
They would.
yeah.
Really? That's just your rank bonus added to your leadership, right?
Yep.
So if you have no rank bonus,
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah, but they're saying that this is in regards to combat resolution.
if they had just said rank bonus, then it would be black
Yeah.
and white.
Yeah,
But-
exactly. And I think there was a couple of other things where it's not just about Skaven, where there were questions raised, and so I think it's okay. The problem is they have to be alive at the end of combat for that to
Right.
Yeah.
for that to come
Right.
in. And
If you choose that dance, then you...
yeah, if you've chosen that dance, they're tough 3 with no armor save.
Yeah.
So somebody can just go, okay, well, I'll direct all my attacks at the war dancers. The only way you can really get away with it is if you're in the flank.
If they're in the flank,
Yeah,
sure.
If you're in the flank and you have the champ in there and you charge in single file, then they're going to be there.
Yeah,
But,
for sure. You can guarantee it that
but-
way, but it's
Yeah,
it's
then you
tricky.
give up
Maybe
a
not
bunch
a good
of
use for
attacks.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
The Shadow's Coil is interesting. I think that gives you a bit of survivability against impact hits, for example.
yeah, you throw that one out if you want.
Right.
Because these guys, let's see, are they stubborn or unbreakable now?
No, they're just immune to psychology.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so
But they're 15 points a model, and you can take 5 up, so it's 75 points. They're not a bad little
Sure.
throwaway unit. You can absolutely take a charge from pretty much anything with a 3 upward save,
Yeah.
and reasonably expect to survive for a turn.
at least one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're gonna, with a unit of 5, you're going to dish back 10 attacks and your ASF. So you're going to do some damage first.
Right.
And so you have a chance of potentially tying combat with a 3-up ward save.
Yeah.
So, they're a bit more of a speed bump than they used to be. They're cheaper. They were 18 points apiece.
Yeah.
I would have preferred them to stay 18 points and to keep the +1 strength. But the 3-up is better than the 4-up ward save they used to have. And the Woven Mist is new, like
that's fun.
The disruption. I think it's fun. So again, I kind of feel a little bit like these guys are not a terrible choice.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I don't think I would want to run a lot of them.
No.
I think they're a support unit. I think you're probably running between 5 and 8 of them. You don't want to put too many points into them.
Right.
Because they're going to die real easily.
Yeah.
But they're great to come in the flank of something. I think they can protect a flank really well. So if you've got archers in the backfield, you can put these guys, on the flank of the archers and prevent people from, charging in with their cavalry or whatever. At least enough to get your archers out of the way.
Yeah, and I think these guys are going to pair well, like a small unit of these with a small unit of scouts moving in tandem would be a really
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, you would have to you'd be kind of losing the scout deployment part.
Well, the scouts can deploy as scouts, and these guys move up to work with them.
join them.
And then between the two of them, you can maybe do double fleas.
No, they can't. They can't flee because they're immune to psych.
Oh, that's true.
That's a bit of a bummer.
Oh, darn.
Yeah.
There goes that. Part.
But you can
You can just take
flee the scouts through the war dancers, and then there's a longer charge that has to be made and what have you. So, I think again these guys have a place. Maybe not in every list. They're not an auto include.
Sure.
And they're squishy, but they're cheaper.
Yeah.
Interestingly,
cool models.
They are cool models, and you can upgrade one to a musician, one to a champion, no banner, and you can exchange the extra hand weapon for a spear, the Azrai spear,
for a point, not even
for
a free
point.
swap.
It's not a free swap.
Seems like not a great choice.
Kind of weird. I mean,
because if you want to if you want to be offensive, then you have the dance that is going to give you armor piercing already.
Well, think about it like this: it's any model, so it's not every model.
Oh, any model.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what that means is you can have your 3rd rank with spears.
You can do a unit of 6. The 2 in the back have spears.
Yeah.
And you're fighting with the entire unit.
Yep.
Now I understand.
Or
I figured that was whole unit.
You could do the 4 in the back with spears, because then you're only getting 1 attack from the 2nd rank anyways. It might as well be armor piercing and have the 2 up front be...
Yep, exactly.
So you could do small elite units of 6 where you're maximizing your attacks, but not,
I think that feels kind of... I mean, you're getting into real subtle territory there.
Yeah, that starts to feel like the Slayers back in the Dwarves. There's some interesting tricks you can play with them.
Right.
Yeah.
But
so what do you like when you shoot? You have to kind of randomize which weapon dies.
No, I don't think so. I think you take them off the back, just like normal.
Oh, so you just lose those spear guys.
Yeah,
first,
you lose the spear guys first, which makes sense, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So, all right. So that's war dancers. Next up, Treekin. Okay, so Treekin were in the last book. I think arguably they were 65 points. They were one of the scariest monstrous infantry in the game.
They were, and they provided a real nice combat block for Wood Elves.
Yeah, they were the hammer.
Mm-hmm. The 6 Treekin would be a
mainstay.
And the anvil.
Well, you had your tree man as an anvil for sure as well. But likewise, they were also a hammer. So the headline here that everybody knows is that the forest spirits have all taken a strength nerf. So they've gone from strength 5 down to strength 4. However, they've dropped in points dramatically. They're only 45 points.
Didn't they lose a lot of initiative too?
Nope, they've always initiative 3.
Okay.
3 attacks, 3 wounds, tough 5. That's all the same. Still the same scaly skin 4 up. Still flammable. Still cause fear. Still a forest spirit, but of course now that's just a 6-up armor save, or 6-up ward save. Sorry. So the big difference also though is the Treekin Elder is now only 10 points. He used to be 20. So throwing in that extra attack is not necessarily a bad thing. So now you can get a little unit of 3 for 135 points. Is that right? Am I doing math right? Yeah, 135, which is not bad. But your unit of 6 or 8 is way more affordable than it used to be, right? I used to be taking a unit of 6 for 400 points. Now it's, just 280 or 270.
So much better.
So much better. But they are pretty much strictly an anvil,
right?
Or they're great at taking out infantry.
I think, and I think what we saw here initially, the great thing about doing this review later is that we've got to experience it. Everybody saw the big hit on these guys losing their strength as such a negative that we stopped seeing them in games almost completely. But the lower points cost paired with the fact that they are still tough 5.
Tough 5 is huge.
It's so. I mean, that's tougher than a troll, isn't it? Trolls are 4.
Yeah, trolls are 4.
So you're gonna slough off a lot of attacks that I think people are eventually gonna migrate back to these guys.
I think as an anvil, these guys are really, really good. I think they are the best anvil that the Wood Elves have. And the reason I say that is they're so hard to wound. Like I've had these guys be charged by demigriffs and still survive and not break from combat. Now the tricky part is
dealing less damage back.
They're dealing way less damage back. So they are more purely an anvil. Sure. And you need something that can come in at the side and support them and actually deal the damage. Or, you need to, cast Mind Razor. Or, because they're leadership 8 and 3 attacks with strength 8. It's nothing to be sneezed at.
Right.
That kind of makes me scared.
It should. So these guys, I think, again, you're not going to see them in every list. Their weapon skill 4. They've got a ballistic skill now. All the forest spirits got a ballistic skill. They never had that before. They are initiative 3, which is not bad for monstrous infantry. I think they're a reasonably solid choice.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yep. All right.
+1 strength,
definitely
+1
took
toughness on them.
Listens is
they
great
definitely
for
took
sure.
less of a hit than dryads. That's for sure.
Yeah,
they remain viable.
Yeah, these guys were never a mobile unit,
right?
And they're still strength 4, which is, as we know,
good.
A lot better than strength 3.
Yeah, it's good. It's not great. It's good.
That's good. Okay, next up, Deepwood Scouts.
Yeah.
So the Deepwood is another area within Athelorn, if I remember rightly. And these guys are effectively the same as the Glade Guard Scouts from the previous book. They've got the same Glade Guard profile. They are, however, much cheaper. They're only 13 points a model, much cheaper than they were in the previous book. They have the Azrai longbow, scouts and skirmishers. Forest Stalker always strikes first. Unit size 5 up, and they can take all the magic items, and all the magic arrows that the regular Glade Guard can take. And the interesting part, they've still retained all of their command options.
Yeah.
So these are scouts that can take a standard bearer and a musician.
Yeah.
So you're just paying a point basically for scout and skirmish.
Yeah, it's kind of fun
pretty
because
bargainous.
Some people create scenarios where you need a standard to claim claim something, and you can start out the game with guys
right
claiming
there.
it. Like ding, thanks.
I've got a banner, and I'm not afraid.
Because these guys could start the game scouted into a building with a standard. Yep. And stand there and pew pew the rest of the game.
Yeah. So
pretty cool.
Like we said, they can take all the enchanted arrows. Again, another solid choice, I think.
Yep.
Super good.
And I think the stuff that I've seen people taking these guys with, the Hagbane, for dealing with war machines.
Yeah.
You scout into short range if you're
And then
lucky.
unload.
If you're lucky, or otherwise, because they're skirmishers, you can march and shoot. So you march into short range and then unload, and you're going to take out. A unit of 5 is maybe a little too small.
Probably, if you want to reliably take out a war machine a turn.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to need
I would do 3 of 5 is what I would do.
3 units
Really?
of 5.
Yeah, 3 of 5 or 6.
I'd just do 1 of 10, I think.
Nah,
I think.
Yep.
I like having them spread out.
I think the tricky part about taking a unit of 10 is the vulnerability to magic missiles.
Yeah, and then the
Particularly
skirmish,
fireball.
you start spacing out 10 models with half an inch between. It gets to be a pretty big footprint.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're in 2 ranks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it could be argued that the ultimate is 3x3
Yep.
in a forest, because then you can all of them can shoot.
And they're skirmishers, so they'd be stubborn in the woods.
That's right, they would.
Another thing, at a stretch, a thing you can do with these guys, if you happen to want to fill up your rare section with tree men, then you can create a kind of Way Watchers light with
Yep.
these guys.
It's true.
They end
Give
up
them
not
the
as
bodkin.
points effective, but
Yep.
18 points with the arcane bodkins.
Yep.
Kind of a lighter version of the Way Watcher.
Well, yeah, and if you're doing a super themed Way Watcher army, then that would be what you do. You'd max out Way Watchers.
Max Way Watchers and then a
max
bunch
out
of...
these guys with the bodkins and take nothing but Way Watcher characters, and then you have a pew pew
Yeah.
and Glade Guard.
Yep.
There you go.
Now, at only 13 points a model and unit size of 5+, this is actually the cheapest infantry and cheapest unit you can get in the game in the army.
Yeah.
The Great Eagle is the one exception, of course, but so you can get 5 wounds of redirecting out of these guys, as well as plinking off wounds of tough things, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
I think 3 units of 5 is not a bad way to spend the points. It's 195 points at that stage, but it's that you can certainly do your double fleas and
Yep.
Is there any
all
kind
that
of
sort
rule
stuff.
about whether you have to deploy anything in Warhammer?
What do you mean?
Well, like if you filled your entire core full of Glade Riders who ambush,
You
and your
can-
entire special and rare full of Way Watchers
This
and
is
scouts, then you don't deploy anything.
Correct.
Yeah, no, that's actually
Regularly.
that's one of the lists that people have been coming
Really?
up with.
yeah.
Yeah, and then you take
It works, too.
you take your general as a Way Watcher Lord
No, you can't. You can't do that.
or hero. Way Watcher
You can
hero.
you can take a Way Watcher hero.
But he can be the general.
He can be the general, and he scouts
and then you have nothing on the table.
nothing.
Yeah, it's totally plausible.
Okay, I'm deployed. I get the +1.
You put down your wood.
Yeah, there you go.
Put down your one wood,
There you go.
and then you let them
Nice.
deploy their entire army, and then you just start coming on.
Yeah, and that's pretty viable, I think. And I don't think it's going to be super winny, but I think it gives you a lot of incredible tactical options.
Yeah, well, and when you think about it, you're going to start the game with the turn 1 is really only going to be 5 skirmishing elf units that with bows. You're not going to have a lot of
Yeah, not a lot of combat.
not a lot of combat options.
And then your Glade Riders come on and do a
Nothing.
little bit more
All right.
shooting.
yeah. So it's
So
not,
it's possible, but it's not.
It's shenanigans.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just-
shenanigans.
yeah. It's a gimmick.
yeah. It would be fun to do once
Sure.
and then
Right.
realize it's not that good.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the neat thing about it is, right, the scout models are just the Glade Guard models. So you could absolutely build that army and do it.
Just try it.
And then put them all into Glade Guard.
and then put them all in
units.
Glade Guard after. Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be funny.
And not feel bad about
You
it.
know what? If you're going to do it, you should absolutely take your Glade Riders in Horde format.
Yeah.
Take
Oh, yeah.
take 30
of them.
30 and it's like
I would, if you could have like,
bam.
Because that would actually be pretty effective then.
if you could make just the regular heroes on horses scouts, then that would actually be pretty viable. You could make like a giant Death Star.
Oh, that'd be funny.
Glade
Well, they'd
Riders.
have to be ambushers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be funny.
Yeah, if you could make them ambushes.
Unfortunately,
Anyway.
no.
Anyway.
moving on.
Yeah. Okay, this is my personal favorite and special, I have to say. The Warhawk Riders.
Mhm.
So these guys were in the previous book. they were actually cheaper. This is the only thing that went up. They were 40 points in their previous book, but they were all sorts of wimpy. And now I think they're at least 3 shades of awesome.
Yeah. These guys are basically eagles now, right?
Yeah, so they're 45 points a model. The Warhawk has gone up to tough 4 and 3 wounds and initiative 5. Awesome. So he's strength 4 and weapon skill 4. The riders on the back are just a standard elf profile, but they've also got ASF now. The Warhawks have armor-piercing attacks, and the riders have armor-piercing spears and bows. So everything that's coming from these bad guys is armor-piercing, which is great. With winged spears and being able to charge, your strength 4 on their charge. So 2 attacks from your Warhawk, 1 attack from your rider. That's 3 strength 4 armor-piercing attacks on the charge. Not too shabby. The 2 neat things about them, I think. One is the Predator's Descent special rule, which the Warhawk has. That gives them killing blow on the charge. So again, it's another little bit of fear to put into people. Mm-hmm. They got to think about that. I've taken out, the Skink Priest and, things that are irritating with that killing blow. And the other thing is that they are, of course, they're flying cavalry. So this is a monstrous cavalry unit. It gets a stomp. That is also fast cav. So they get a vanguard, they skirmish. When they flee and then rally, they can move, march, move, and shoot again. Because they're skirmishers, they can and fast cav, they can march and shoot. So these guys have a huge effective range. And you're not limited in unit size, where you used to be. You could only take between 3 and 6. It's not like you're likely to take a huge unit of them, although I think there are some builds where you could.
Death Star.
I know. Could you imagine
Hawk Star
just maxing out your special with 3 units of these guys?
And then a bunch of heroes on eagles with them.
Well, I've built that list. Actually, and we'll talk about it when we get to the lists. I've got it. I think
the Hawk Star.
I think it's a pretty funny and remarkably effective list. So we can talk about that when we get there.
Although the characters can't join these guys still, right?
They cannot.
Okay.
They can't what?
Flying characters can't join flying units. Yeah.
In fact, no characters can join flying units at all. There's a couple that have a special rule that allow them to do it, I think. But yeah, that's what kind of screws Bretonnians as well.
And Pterodons.
Pterodons, yeah. So it's kind of
hopefully in 9th they get rid of that because then
it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't, and it would, and we would see a lot more flying units in the game,
which would be great.
It's fun because the models are amazing now.
Yep.
Ever since they started making them with plastic kits, it's like, oh man, the models stay up.
And that was one little downside is we didn't get a Warhawk special kit.
I'm sorry.
I was really hoping for like a dual kit Warhawk Great Eagle. Or maybe something that, maybe there was going to be a flying rare choice. That would have been epic. Like
the owls.
The
rumored owls.
I don't know about that. But what I was half expecting was the Warhawks would remain kind of light and fast. And then there would be like kind of
like a big armored bird.
Like a medium cavalry version, that was tougher or something. But
these guys,
whatever.
These guys
tough enough.
These guys feel like medium cavalry.
They do. They kind of are, except, they've no armor, right? So they've only got the 6 up mounted. But they're harder to shoot at because they're skirmishers. And they're tough 4, and they've got 3 wounds
each.
So that's at 135 points, you're getting 9 wounds at tough 4. That's not too shabby.
No.
For a 20-inch march range. So you've got an effective 30-inch range, 50-inch range because you march 20 and shoot 30. So you can deploy these guys. If you deploy them, no matter where you deploy them,
you'll be able to shoot anything.
Because they Vanguard 12, you basically have a 62-inch effective range from wherever you're deployed.
So just hide them in the corner when you deploy.
Deploy
them first.
Yeah. These are guys that I tend to deploy early on because, I can move them wherever I want.
Yeah.
And people don't pay attention to them, right? They end up being more effective than they should be because people are worried about other things in the army.
Well, yeah, it's like flyers usually don't do much, but I think these guys could.
These guys do. Yeah. They they're not going to overwhelm a combat unit.
No.
But they're going to take out archers. They're going to take out war machines.
Sure, yeah.
They're going to take out chaff, and they're going to survive. I love these guys. So, Sisters of the Thorn. This is a new unit to the Wood Elf army. People have been comparing them somewhat wrongly and unfairly, I think, to the Warlocks.
Why unfairly?
Well, because I think they perform a very different role in the army.
But on face value, they certainly they have obvious
similarities in that they're
You're
fast,
right, they do
fast cav who can cast spells.
Yeah. With a 4-up ward.
With a 4-up ward, yeah. So yeah, let's just go into that.
Yeah.
These guys or girls, I should say. They have an extra pip of ballistic skill, so they're ballistic skill 5 and their leadership 9. Fast cavalry, 26 points per model. They ride what's called a steed of Isha, and so Isha is one of the elf goddesses. The steeds are move 9, strength 4, which is kind of nice.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are these guys armed with? They've got Blackbriar javelins. That's not easy. That's not easy to say. Yeah. So that basically gives them poison attacks.
I love that the javelins are on their backs crossed. It just looks so cool.
Yep. Yeah.
Really cool models.
I do like the models. This is a brand new dual kit with the Wild Riders, which we'll get to next. So these guys, they've got these stag type models. The range on their javelin is only 12 inches. Strength is user. It's armor piercing. So it's going to be strength 3 most of the time, poison and armor piercing. So the two special rules they've got that are interesting is this Daughters of Eternity special rule, which is the 4-up ward, and the Deepwood Coven special rule, which is what turns them into wizards.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's also, just to mention, there's also a little bit of ambiguity with their javelins, isn't there? And that,
yeah.
well, only if you try and interpret them as being a regular javelin with extra rules, because they don't actually have the quick to fire rule on the profile for this weapon.
Correct.
So it's another thing that might be FAQ'd, but as it stands right now, you can't use these as quick to fire weapons.
Which is really sad, you know, because you march the fast cav and then they can't shoot.
Right.
They can shoot, but they get the -1 penalty.
Yeah.
And because they've got such a short range weapon, you know, you have to get close up and then somebody charges you and you can't stand and shoot.
Right.
Or, you know, so it's...
Seems like it must be an oversight as well. There's no way he can't have intended them to have that rule.
I think it is an oversight. Rules was written, they don't get it. I'm pretty sure that will be adjusted as soon as Games Workshop gets off its butt and really starts releasing FAQs again.
Yeah, it's tough because, you know, like the spear, the way they worded it, it seems pretty obvious that they wanted the spears in this book to function differently than the real spear, but they still give it the spear name. And here you feel like they wanted the javelins to function like a javelin, but they didn't include that, you know, clearly.
Yep.
And yeah, just kind of.
Yeah, for sure. So Deepwood Coven then, this is the special rule, that makes them the level 2 wizard. So what's interesting here is, so they've got two choices of spells. They get 2 spells, I should say. Shield of Thorns, which is, of course, you know, a very fluffy choice given the name is the Sisters of the Thorn. And the Curse of Anrahir from the Lore of Beasts. So one's from Lore of Life, one's from Lore of Beasts. Thoughts on the spells?
Well, I think it's worth pointing out that Curse of Anrahir is a kind of a fluffy choice for them as well, right? Because the fluff for that spell is that brambles are kind of coming out the ground and wrapping around people. So it seems like both of the spells were picked for fluff reasons rather than kind of utility reasons. Like with the Warlocks, it was pretty obvious that they were given 2 spells that function very well with fast cav unit. You know, the one spell where you can zoom in, unleash a very powerful magic missile, and another one where you can zoom in and do a big bubble of -1 strength and toughness. So 2 very strong utility spells. With these guys, it's harder to really pick out a solid utility.
Weak. It feels like they're weak, but I've had curse go off on me, and
Curse can be a pain in the ass.
it can be a
Curse is
pain.
really
horrible.
can, yeah.
Especially since, as it's worded, can't it stack?
Yes. So if you have multiple curses, I believe that you would be taking a dangerous terrain test for each curse.
And then also, if you're already taking a dangerous terrain test and you have curse, isn't it -2?
No. So
No?
So the way that
Okay.
the wording works, the way that the spell works is you take a dangerous terrain test on a 1 or a 2, you fail.
Right. Okay.
And you treat all terrain, even open terrain, as dangerous terrain.
Okay.
So what that means is if you march, charge, flee, pursue, or overrun, you're losing a third of your unit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, when you just think about that spell, you're like, oh, this is a spell that I always just take the signature when I roll it, right?
No way, man.
But
Yeah, it could
when
actually
you,
a really powerful
when you put
spell.
this up against what the Wood Elves normally have problems with, which is heavy armor,
Yep.
it destroys
Sure.
those units.
Destroys armor. It's great for hordes. Right?
Yeah.
You're taking out a third of a horde.
And for the kind of MSU tactics of wanting to focus all your units on one enemy block at the moment at a time, while ensuring that the other one can't get involved in combat for a little while.
Yep.
You just keep it out of combat for a turn, or
For sure. Yeah. So I think it's a very solid spell.
It is.
like three demigriffs. You could end up losing one demigriff just on one bad roll with those.
Yeah.
And it's a low casting value, isn't it?
No, and that's I think the problem.
Yeah, that is the problem.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's a 10.
Do they
which
get the? Or
they do not get the bonus to cast in a forest. However, they do get a +1 to cast for each rank of 5 that they have beyond the first,
Right.
to
Okay.
maximum of +3. So if you've got a full 20 of them, you could cast as a level 5. But normally I think if you're either going to be given +2 or maybe +3 at a stretch with a unit like this, at 26 points a model, that's 260 points into a single unit is pretty hefty.
Yeah.
They're going to keep their points well because they've got a 4 aboard, but the other thing about it is, so the Shield of Thorns, I think it's an okay spell.
It's okay. I wish they'd combined. I love Curse of Enrahir. I wish they'd combined it with something a little more offensive as the second spell.
Yeah, I think
Amber Spear.
Amber Spear. I wish they had given them Amber Spear.
that would have been brutal.
Yeah, like fast cav up into a flank and just Amber Spear.
I think why they gave them Shield of Thorns, aside from the fluff, is also because the lore attribute from the Lore of Life allows you to heal a wound. So this just makes them yet again an amazing character bunker, because you can cast that Shield of Thorns on themselves, on something else, and
Heal the
heal
character while you're at
the
it.
wound. Shield of Thorns also remains in play, and it's not annoying enough for most people to dispel. So it's kind of good at the start of the game. You can cast it on like an Eagle or a Warhawk unit, and people will just leave it there and forget about it. And now your unit that was kind of doing 5 or 6 wounds is doing 7 or 8 wounds, or whatever.
So it's one of those things for the early game where you have very few
Yep.
solid options. Just,
Yep, and it's not bad at the late game when you might have lost your wizard. It's
Or a
another
way to draw out some dice.
Yep, it's
Yeah.
another spell that you've got available, and healing that one wound can be very nice. You can cast it again and again. So I think you're right. I think they're not immediately obviously useful.
Right.
But here's the thing: every Wood Elf player that's been playing for a long time has been restricted to either Beast or Life. And so we've had these spells many times, and we've seen the uses that they've got, and we've used them, and we can figure things out and figure out ways to use them effectively. So it's not terrible.
Right. And really with these, it seems like with these girls, you're not buying them for the spells anyway.
No,
It's
although
even without the spells, they're a great unit.
I think they are.
And in the role that we see obviously most often, which is as a kind of wizard bunker.
Yep.
A fast mobile wizard bunker.
Yep. I think that one last thing just about the Deepwood Coven rule is that when they miscast, they take D3 wounds with no saves. And that is way, way more punishing than what happens with the Doomfire Warlocks.
What happens to them?
They take D3 hits. Right? And it
Ouch.
doesn't matter what strength it is, they still get their ward save against it.
Right.
So these guys just roll a D3 and you take off that many models, which hurts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think obviously you're saying they're a fantastic bunker. They can take a 50-point magic standard up to, but honestly, I think the standards you see on these guys are going to be the gleaming pennant to get the reroll because they might be outside
resistance.
The magic resistance is going to be number one,
Yeah.
right? Leashbone pennant, they get the 3-up ward against spells,
Mm-hmm.
and potentially maybe the leadership one, the +1 leadership.
Because you're going to have your general in there.
If that's your
probably.
general,
Yeah.
and you want to get the leadership 10. So those are all 15-point banners.
Yeah.
So they don't need that 50-point. Why couldn't they have given the 50-point to the Wildwood Rangers?
Exactly.
Who actually need it?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I think these guys, another solid choice. I think if you're not running them as a bunker, I think they're great as a 5 model, fast cav unit because they're actual fast cav
Yeah.
that start,
They'd be a good distraction.
At that point, the missing the quick to fire rule becomes kind of starts to hurt more.
It does.
When you're trying to use them in that role.
It's true.
But
They're also poison attacks in close combat,
true.
which is not bad.
Mm-hmm.
130 points for a 5-man 4-up ward redirector. That's not terrible.
Right.
They're going to last a lot longer than.
And they'll
some
do
other
pretty
things
well,
will.
against charging other fast cav because their steeds are obviously more badass than most fast cav and they have the poison. So
Yeah, for sure. Okay. Last of the special choices, and arguably the biggest change for any of the units in the game or in the army book, the Wild Riders.
a lot has been said about these guys.
Yeah.
It's all deserved. They
It's-
are truly
These guys are pretty intense.
incredible
I mean,
unit.
to me, they typify the glass cannon that Wood Elves really are. So let's just go through them real quick. They've got weapon skill 5. So just changes from the standard elf profile. Weapon skill 5, base strength 4, which is pretty huge, and leadership 9.
Mm-hmm.
They've also got the Azrai spear and light armor. They're 26 points a model. They come on the Steed of Kurnos, which has the same profile as the Steed of Isha, strength 4. But as we'll get to in a minute, that's a little bit heftier. So the riders have ASF and they have devastating charge. So they've automatically then got an extra attack on the charge. The whole model's fast cav, causes fear, forest stalker, and frenzy.
Right.
And
So it's kind of
talismanic
funny when you just
tattoos.
look at the stats on paper, it's like meh. And
Meh,
then when you add
whatever.
in the special rules,
You add in the special
devastating
rules.
charge and the frenzy,
Yeah, so
and they just become blenders.
for sure. So again, ambiguity. The model has frenzy. So they explicitly state riders only for always strikes first and for devastating charge, but not for the frenzy.
Right.
And
So it's not really ambiguous. It's just the whole model has it.
you're surprised how many people are complaining about that. There's a number of other models.
What is it to complain
in
about?
the game that say frenzy in the army book, and then they were FAQ'd to say only applies to the rider or whatever.
But unless
So-
it specifies, then it applies to every part of the model.
Yep, it does. And, that's how you should play it, right? Rules is written. The mount also has frenzy. So adding that all up, when you charge,
So awesome.
you have 3 attacks from the rider with ASF and 2 attacks from the mount
So five attacks
total.
per model.
per model. So a unit of 6, which is how I've been running them, gets you 30 attacks on the charge.
Strength 4.
Strength
Strength
5
on
on
the
the
riders.
charge, yeah, because
Oh.
they've got spears.
18 at strength
With armor
5 and
piercing.
With armor
12 at
piercing, so
strength
negative
4.
3 off that armor.
Ouch.
Yeah. So they hit like a ton of bricks.
They really do.
So they're 26 points a model. They can take a magic banner up to 50, and they can take shields at 2 points a model, which I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yeah.
You absolutely want to give these guys a 4-up armor save. They get the talismanic tattoos that give them a 6-up ward. So that is exactly the same armor save as Treekin right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're only tough 3 versus tough 5, but having that armor save can really help. So 28 points a model. This is just 28 points of awesome as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I mean, they combine hitting power and mobility in a way that I can't think of any other unit in the game that does.
What other model has 5 attacks at that sort of point level? There's not much.
Had a 25 mil wide.
25 mil wide.
Yeah.
In special.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can't think of one either.
And
Yeah.
to combine it with the Vanguard
yeah.
and the Reforms.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you can take full command.
You can take full command. I mean, I don't run these guys with any command. And I think, there's Frenzy is a blessing and a curse, right?
Sure.
What I've found is, people will feed them something and you charge and, you're off away down in the flank. But you know what? I don't care.
Right. You just wiped out some unit.
I've wiped out a unit. I'm move 9. Now I'm in your backfield.
And you can maneuver as many times as you need to get out of there in your next turn.
I'm turn 2. I might do nothing because all I've done is maneuver. But turn 3, I'm charging something up the ass.
And you're leadership 9 anyway, so
leadership
Frenzy
9.
is not that much of a big
flank
deal.
or rear charge with these guys is just gonna destroy things.
I've felt it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think just an entire unit of Bestigals just disintegrate from a double charge. 2 units of those.
Was it 2 units?
I think.
it
Or
was,
was it only
just
just the one?
I think it was just the one.
These are the guys.
I've retconned it in my mind to 2 just to make it a little better, but yeah.
This is where
just
you
one.
want to get your Eternal Guard in there to tar pit something.
Yeah.
Or your
Treekin.
Treekin.
Yeah.
Or
These guys are absolutely your hammer coming from the side.
Yeah.
And, what did you just calculate for a unit of 6?
30.
With the
31
In terms of
points.
points?
cost?
168.
168. So just the fact that for pretty minimal cost you can have three units of these on the
500
table,
points.
it makes combining that with the mobility, it just makes it almost impossible to prevent getting some kind of flank or rear charge from these guys.
Yeah. But so what I found is, people who have played against Wood Elves know exactly how hard they hit.
Yeah.
And so magic missiles and
just BS shooting.
And BS shooting are going on them. That's why you need the 4-up armor. BS shooting, a lot of the time, you're at least being able to save. Because you're only tough 3, so you're taking wounds most of the time. But it's the fireballs that kill you.
Yeah.
Right? Lore Master, any of the ones that
just
get all the
dribbling
signature spells.
through the
oh god, so many spells that I have to dispel.
So many
just to keep
magic
them alive,
missiles,
and they chip away. But here's the fun thing about them: you chip away. I'm going to charge you with 2 models and still wreck your face.
That is that's awesome.
True.
Where they fall down, they don't break steadfast.
Right. And if you can survive 1 round of combat, then the power goes down.
The power goes down
significantly
considerably.
in the next round of
Now
combat.
all of the attacks are strength 4. There's still 4 strength 4 attacks,
Right.
2 of which are armor piercing, but they do not grind well.
Yeah.
They do not grind well. And this is where, you have to go back to the Wood Elf standard of multi-charges.
Yeah.
Right.
Just overwhelm them completely.
Yeah. You need support. I generally, when I'm charging, I want to be charging with 2 units minimum and 3 units ideally. And so what I've done with these guys is this is where I love the Warhawk Riders so much, I've taken 3 units. I've taken them multiple times now. I'll pop 1 on one flank and the other 2 on the other flank, and the Warhawk Riders in front of those 2 on that flank. And so they'll all Vanguard and the Warhawk Riders will be in front. So that means I get to choose if I want to charge or not. I won't be charging on turn 1 because I've Vanguarded. Usually I'm giving away the first turn anyway, right? But I get to make the choice. And I've because it's very easy for me to choose to charge out of the way with the Warhawk Riders and have the Wild Riders then charge into whatever I want to hit with, or I can indeed double charge with the Warhawk Riders and Wild Riders and what have you. And most of the time, people are directing their attacks back at the Wild Riders, so the Warhawk Riders don't die anyway. If there's anything left after you've hit.
Yeah.
So these guys, I think they fall down against other ASF a little bit because while they do all their wounds, they're taking a ton of wounds. Where they are best is against stuff that doesn't have ASF.
Right.
Because then they've chipped off a whole bunch of attacks.
Yeah.
So, for example, hitting the side of a block of High Elf Spearmen with these guys, you lose a ton of dudes where if you were hitting a block of, Orc Spearmen or Dwarves or anything like that, you're actually killing a bunch before you're taking the attacks back.
But even if you
probably kill half my unit of goblins in one in one charge.
Well, man, I killed poor Ryan. I killed 25 of his Saurus before he had a chance to attack back. 25 out of 28. And so,
Tough 4 Saurus.
So he wasn't steadfast anymore. A tough 4 Saurus, yeah. It was kind of gross.
Do you feel dirty about
that?
that?
I felt dirty after that.
Was that with how many units was that?
That was 6 in one flank and 2 in the other flank. So it was
8 models.
8 guys, yeah.
What else do these guys not do well against? What happens if you charge 2 units of them straight into a Kadai Destroyer?
Yeah, not too well against that. Because they don't have magical attacks.
Right.
So they need magic buffs to take out a Kadai for sure. I think they also aren't great against Demon Princes.
Sure.
They don't get their rerolls against a Demon Prince. So while they're going first, they're like against Demon Prince of Nurgle, they're only hitting on 5s.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've thrown them into everything to see how they do.
Yeah. I mean, you got to experiment, right?
Yeah. But they're epic against Stegodons. They'll just wreck a Stegodon.
Right. Yeah, they would. Yeah.
Because they go first with rerolls and they're strength 5. So
assume, let's say you're counting on these guys to be your main damage output for your list. So you're maybe, taking 3, units of them of 6 to maybe 8 models. What would be the lore that you would want to pair with them?
I think you've got a bunch of good choices because these guys, and we can talk about this more in the next episode when we talk about lores, but I think these guys, a lot of the time, I'm not doing anything with them because they hit so hard by themselves. I'm using my magic for other stuff. The stuff that I've had success with these guys, Shadow, where I've withered something in order to make it even more likely for them to wound.
Yeah.
Or I've miasma'd something to make them more likely to hit.
Right, that helps that elf on elf matchup.
Yep. Okay. Or made them harder to hit back, right?
Now, so what about doesn't light increase? What can light do?
I haven't taken
can double your attacks, I think.
Yeah,
right?
light gives you ASF and gives you a +1 attack. Like that time warp.
Yeah, right.
And I think there's another one that gives you weapon skill 10 or something. And I haven't really experimented with that because usually they're hitting pretty hard. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't think you need light.
Beasts, of course, a Wissons on those guys is very, very good.
Yeah.
Now they're strength 6 armor piercing on the charge and they're tough 4. It's actually pretty amazing.
Yeah, Wissons is awesome.
And they're cavalry, so it's 1 less to cast on them.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's pretty fun. And the other one that I had there, this is where Tom's pain came from, was dark magic, where I did the leadership test bomb on all of his units, which is every time you fail a leadership test,
your leadership goes
down by 1, and so these guys cause fear.
But
so
every unit affected by the spells, leadership goes down by 1.
It's a big bubble.
Oh yeah. It happened to my goblins.
So as soon as I started failing leadership, and then I could just never make a leadership after that, and all of a sudden my
it just
entire
gets worse
army
and
is
worse
just
and
running off
worse.
the board.
Yeah.
That was my first game against Wood Elves, and it was 3 turns. Did I last
3 turns?
Or was
yeah.
it just 2?
No, it
3
was 3.
turns.
Yeah.
And my entire army
And you're
was
like,
off
well,
the board.
I'm gonna flip the table now.
Yeah. And I was like, is this what it's going to be like playing Wood Elves now? But
Yeah.
that was just a particularly brutal combination of
of stuff,
of the spells working perfectly with the build.
Yeah, and I think, we'll definitely talk more about Magic lore choices in the next episode.
Yeah.
I think these guys, I like the models. They're super dynamic. I don't like the horns on the stags, particularly because they sit raised up. So I've converted all of mine to either be flatter down on the Wild Riders, and then on the Sisters I just cut the horns off and made them look like actual deer horn.
Yeah, they look a lot better that way.
Yeah, I like them. I like them like that.
I'm not sure how I feel about. I kind of wish they were just like sitting down a little more on the stag.
They're kind
the way
of
they're all kind of like
standing
up off the stag makes them look kind of a little bit prancy.
They are a little bit prancy.
They're prancy elves. What do you want?
And I like the old Wild Rider models too. They were on the horses with the metal heads, and they were all kind of. They were a bit more wild in a rough woodsy sort of way. They had furs and tattoos and stuff. So
yeah, these definitely look more like kind of magical, mystical kind of.
Yeah, exactly.
Things.
They're all horns and cloaks, and
the helmets are a genius in my mind. I love these helmets.
Yeah, I didn't like the Sisters ones because they had a great big crest in the middle.
Yeah,
and so I just cut the crest off and gave them all just little horns.
Yeah, looks much better.
So yeah, that is the Wild Riders. That wraps up special. I think that wraps up.
That's got to wrap up this episode.
The episode. So we got through fluff, army-wide rules, core, and special.
Oversized meatball.
So in the next episode 11, we'll cover rare characters, magic items, magic choices, and army builds. So, dang it, we talked a lot longer than I thought we would. Stick 3 nerds in front of microphones. Yeah. This is what happens.
Next episode, we'll also talk a lot about Secret Army Project.
Oh, yeah, Secret Army Project. I'm so excited about that.
And I don't know. Do you think we'll get a chance to record before Sporkle Party?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we should try to record next week if we can.
Okay.
See how we go. Okay, well, thanks, folks, for sticking with us through the rest of this episode, and we will talk to you again soon.